Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto hates his godly parent Percy Jackson. Before I start, please support for more amazing content and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by Spartaleox and link in description and support writer. Let's start the video. Chapter 1. Time to oneself and reflection. Just like that it was over, Kagaya lay there as the ceiling took effect knowing she was defeated. All her efforts, planning and patience for several centuries gone. The one responsible for this was few hundred meters below her, staring at her just after flinging next to her the shadowling that had helped her to be unsealed and had been annoyingly calling her mother. Kagaya focused her gaze on the boy's stare, half expecting a smug look or a hatred-filled glare. That was the cycle of pain and hatred that this boy had perpetuated. Yet much to her surprise, the look gave her shook to her core. That's a lot seeing in the manga, not even being sealed made apparent much emotion. The gaze those deep electric cerulean eyes were giving her was that of comprehension phasing to forgiveness laced with a need to know. His gaze pierced her and only sought to know and understand how she wound up like she had, trying to conceive the feeling of betrayal and disappointment, attempting to relate to her pain and be in her place. Failing to do so completely as the dimension's portal started to collapse, yet giving her one last forgiving stare. Kagaya was just stunned at this and didn't start to realize Naruto's reasons until sometime later. Like that she simply was thrown into the darkness, only her consciousness remaining, or perhaps not even that, in just dream. Just how much time had passed, she didn't have a way to know. Not that it mattered, seeing, figure of speech, that she was gonna be trapped for eternity or the end of time, whichever came first. In this darkness, at the lack of something better to do, she started to ponder about what had happened. Her plan had been almost flawless, carried out with utmost patience and dedication, yet the 1 in a million chance of failing had happened. The blonde boy incarnation of Ashura overturned every single pinch and dire situation he had had. Shouldn't have been possible. Yet it was possible, heard herself saying. Was it herself? Did she actually create it in split persona? Maybe, I am in your head. But who is to know? Better company than the black husk. You mean the black blob brat, as Naruto called him. What? You do know Ashura's incarnation is named Naruto. Why do you know that, and actually the nickname is fitting? Meh, I know what you know, so must probably shrugged it off during the fight. I guess so. It was quite possible during the fight she didn't actually took them seriously, maybe until almost the end of it. And that was her mistake. You can say that again. That actually annoyed Kagaya a bit. Sore spot. But was that our only mistake? That made her frown, sort of. What does that mean? She got the feeling that question didn't restrict itself to solely the fight. But her planning had been perfect to that point, even her puppets that thought themselves the masterminds. I mean, Naruto seemed quite ticked off at our plan, and unlike you took it very seriously to prove you wrong. And how would him being ticked off or how serious he was be a deciding factor? Then what else? At this point, if your plan was perfect, what else could it be that actually hit home? As much as she wanted to diminish it, apparently the boy's determination must have had an influence. Seems so, yet just proves that humanity is being consumed in the endless cycle of hatred. The fact that he had defeated her, relaying in his hate of her, proved it. Was he now? How could he not? I don't know, however did his last gaze to you felt hateful. Kagaya pondered again the gaze of the boy, and much to her surprise his gaze and the look he gave her wasn't that of hate at all. However, she was unable to pinpoint how it felt to her, that gaze. Anger had a lot of it. Yet no hate. Quite the paradox indeed. Just how was that possible, to be angry but not to hate? Maybe if you single out the motif of his anger. I killed his companions. Somehow Kagaya knew she had facepalmed. You can do better than that, dear. During the war, even before she revealed herself, the boy. Naruto. What? His name is Naruto. It's getting unnerving you calling him boy all the time. Whatever, Naruto must have had to lose lots of important people, and if she were to consider that the events of his birthday were part of the plan, well, his whole hell of a childhood was her fault. How did she knew that? But he boasted his pride as shinobi to no end. He did say something of the history of the shinobi being wrote by the shinobi that died building it. So he's not mad at dying part. Seems he accepts it, but then what was cause of his anger if not the deaths of his companions? It didn't seem that he was indifferent to them. Perhaps it's about the why. He was pretty pissed at the 3xb, black blob brat. Kagaya almost chuckled at the mention of it. Because I enacted my plan, meaning they had to die, which could be interpreted as sacrifices for it. He also called it a foolish and unnecessary plan, but it was necessary had it succeeded the cycle of. Hey, keep up with the program, you already were defeated. She let a mental sight. Then in his point of view they were unnecessary sacrifices of his most beloved, but didn't hate me. Kagaya felt she was at square one. But kept thinking, if not her, then he hated solely her actions. As improbable that seemed to her, that was her conclusion. Making progress. Oddly assertive. That was somewhat out of the way. Back at his gaze, somehow understanding more now, Kagaya realized that it was a somewhat sad look, but most of all it somehow seemed to her as if he was looking for something. She recalled the fight step by step, move by move, second to second. Slowly something began to dawn on her. Naruto, despite his obvious total reject of her ideal of peace, was trying something during the whole fight. It felt as with each strike they traded he tried to see her, to understand her and place himself in her place. A slight flare of anger swelled up in her. How could he even attempt to do such a thing? He was her enemy and vice versa. How could he even begin to understand that her very sons had standed against her and had perpetuated the perversion of her gift? Did he mean to most remotely stand in her place to comprehend her and yet completely deny her resolution and dream, her only ambition and cherished dream of peace, her reasoned enter? Yet he had tried just that, didn't he? Kagaya in denial retraced her thoughts, musings and battle images as if movies they were. Analyzing everything in almost all angles 1,000 times, and yet 1,000 more. She felt herself dropping to her knees, so to speak. She felt defeated and tired. Naruto had demonstrated even while battling her. The very essence of what she and her son Hagoromo had failed to do with their gifts to humanity. She felt for him, she felt for the pain she had inflicted on his body and soul. She wept and despaired, she wanted to make it up for him. And just how far would you be willing to go for that chance? Said a booming feminine voice. Kagaya truly looked up as the darkness was dispelled and a figure covered in light. She was light, appeared in front her. Line break. Oh come on Bachan. You know this is what I've been aiming since day one at the academy. Screamed to the top of his lungs, certain hyperactive knucklehead unpredictable blonde ninja. Earning him a sound smack on the head courtesy of the always strong Tsunade Senju. Albeit it was a more tame smack than most of the time. Containing her anger at certain uncalled honorific due to her understanding the brat's anger. Don't I know it Naruto, you practically yelled that at least 20 times a day since I met you and I'm certain you did so even before. Please, just 20. That's a plain understatement said a certain fox-like chakra being. You serious? Answered the Monkey King Son Goku in disbelief. I've been with the kid since day one, trust me on a good or bad, he can go up to 50. Hey quit down. Or I'm dropping the Turi. Ha. I dare you mock the San Tanuki Shukaku. Next thing he knew 6 giant Turis pinned him down by the arms, legs, tail and neck, resulting in said Tanuki snarling some curses in a more quiet tone. Anyone else, said the blonde mentally raising an eyebrow. We're good thank you said the remaining Biju in unison back to reality. Tsunade hadn't finished talking. Well I'm certain that you'll become a great Hokage one day, you're still not ready. You already have the strength and power as well the trust of all the citizens if not all of the shinobi in the land and carry the will of fire deep in you, but you still lack one crucial thing. Seeing he remained surprisingly silent she paused. What? Said Naruto. Nothing, sorry, as I said the one thing you lack right now is experience as a leader and having the responsibility of ensuring the well-being of those under you. Which why I'm making 2 edicts here and now saying the last part with the seriousness of the goddamn Hokage. Naruto as well as Shizune, Shikamaru, Hinata, Sakura, Kakashi, the rest of the Konoha 11 and the now returned Sasuke. Catched on and straightened up taking a serious pose. As of now I'm declaring that the seat of the Rakudame Hokage will belong to Hada Kakashi as he is the one I select as my successor once I retire in the following months. Adding to that the motion of selecting Uzumaki Namikaze Naruto as his successor in addition of an immediate promotion of said genin to Anbu class and later assignment as team leader after a performance test, effective as of now as she said that an Anbu with a standard Anbu uniform, except for a dark reddish vest and a spider mask, appeared in the room with a brand new Anbu armor and uniform and a pure white Anbu mask in hand. Wow, Hito-chan is that what I think it is? You're the only one to still call that still at my age Naru-kun, said the Anbu captain in neutral voice, yet Naruto knew she was amused because of the Naru-kun. Wait. How you know who she is, assuming she's a she? Said a bewildered Sakura. Naruto turned to her and flashed his foxy grin, earning Hinata a slight blush. I've known almost all of the senior members of the Anbu since before the academy. As much as it pains me to say it, he did vandalize the Hokage Mountain in plain day, escaped the Anbu chasing him at the age of 8, wearing an orange jumpsuit if I might add said the Anbu captain. Again, you got to be kidding me Fasipum Son Goku. Wow, Naru-kun you're more fox-like than Kurama smirked Matatabi. As if. He can only wish so. Roared Kurama. If he ever wasn't stealthy it was because he himself didn't wish so. Or was stupid enough to not to do so remarked Kurama. Pan it. Oblivious to this inner dialogue of sorts were 11 stunned shinobis that were staring in a mix of awe and awkwardness as if they were seeing him for the first time. Said person was merely scratching his back head sheepishly. In the afterlife certain Uchiha ex-captain was laughing his ass off remembering his companions being victims of the blonde maelstrom. So hope you like this pilot chapter. I'll be posting 2 more chapters, even if it not well received, hope not thx for the love. This is my first fanfiction, but I'm actually working in my own novel. I'm checking if the regulations permit for self-advertisement 3. If they do, I'll post a link. Please comment and leave an opinion, preferably constructive, but if you wanna flame hate etc. you're in your right and in mine to ignore you. Clarifying some things, Naruto it's not op or godlike, but he's fairly strong, beat a primordial Suoya, and he isn't gonna insta-Kyuubi mode every single enemy. Also I'm making him slightly more cunning and less airheaded, possible mild bashing later in the story sorry, but just hate some characters in both universes. There will be multiple couples yes and my Abe Lemons later, if I see good response. Naruto isn't the only one getting some love 3. I'm a fan of the Narutoxpage crossovers so stories of Herdosora, SHADOW12, God of Spartan the Kitsune, Historian of Case, Yugamingayan have been an inspiration, and some concepts may be similar. Chapter 2 Not that dense are you? Although he was still pissed that he wasn't selected to be Hokage, Naruto was still in a good mood after the announcement of Tsunade had made. After all he finally had left behind his genin status and quick jump to Anbu, and had been recommended for Hokage successor. So all in all things had turned out quite good for him. While walking to an inn where his congratulation party was going to be held, he began to think about Tsunade had said. Despite himself and a pain groaned, Naruto did realize that Tsunade was spot on her assessment and decisions. While the war was in full swing, Naruto just couldn't see himself taking the decisions, the planning and workload Tsunade and the other cages had to deal with. In addition that he really had never been in charge of any mission whatsoever. So it would be quite an interesting experience to be a squad leader. That though made him a little nervous, but quickly dismissed it. After all he would cross that bridge when he got to it. However a familiar voice took him out of his musings. Naruto. Why the serious face, come on and get in shouted a smiling Ino, waving him to enter the inn. It seemed while absorbed in his thoughts Naruto had arrived at the inn. He just sheepishly scratched the back of his head and entered with a light smile on his face. Coming. Well without further ado, congrats on graduating from Genin said Ino, while turning around waving her arms and letting Naruto to see that all of the Konoha 12 were there, as well as a few people such as AM and Tuchi-Asen, Iruka, Gai-sensei and Kakashi coming to pat him in the back. Kurenai carrying her newborn, Anko-chan beside her grinning like crazy. Tsunade and Shizune sitting in a table in the back having already started on the sake. Surprisingly Hiashi and a few clan leaders that weren't at HQ during the war were also there giving him small bow, but full of respect. Also unknown to most that night a very sizable piece of the Anbu and Haijonin were dispatched just to keep the fangirls back, fear the fangirls, fear them. With the party in full swing and Naruto already downed 11 ramen bowls, courtesy of AM, he noted that everybody were in their own conversations and laughing, cheering and downing cups of sake. He had just managed to get away from Tsunade by sacrificing Sakura, she was so gonna get back for that, and saw Sasu quietly going at the drink bar. Naruto tried to go over to him, but was held up as Hyuga Hiashi, Inyazuka Tsume and Aburam Shibi approached him. Naruto Dono could you spare us a moment of your time asked Hiashi very respectfully, that made Naruto very awkward. For the love of Kami, ease up Hiashi it's a party besides, according to Kiba Naruto-kun here doesn't go with stuck-up formalities, said Tsume. Hiashi chuckled slightly much to Shibi and Tsume's surprise. Usually he'd either HMPT''D or go about his position as clan leader and whatnot. Sorry force of habit. Don't worry about it, Hyuga-san said Naruto quickly correcting himself somewhat unsure as how to refer to a clan leader. It's okay Naruto-kun you can call me Hiashi, after all you've done for all of us, and very specially for my daughter and nephew that made Naruto felt a little tinge in his heart, he still hadn't completely gotten over Niji's demise. He knew that eventually he'd have to move and carry out his promise with him. It hurt him still yet he would become Hokage now more than ever. This half a second waver and rekindle did not pass on a blue moon to the clan leaders as they saw the slight twitch, almost non-existent, in his face. Yet just as quick his eyes regained that intensity that was so much as a trademark as his whiskers. This made the clan leaders even surer of what they had come to propose to Naruto. He keeps remembering his fallen comrades yet keeps going forward, or at least keeps trying to though quite pleased Tsume, grinding widely the Inyazuka head grabbed him by the shoulder. And that's why we want to give you something in return Naru boy, especially now that your awesome full pedigree it's finally widely known. You see Naruto-kun since you officially have taken up the Uzumaki name along with the Namikaze name, combined with your recent exploits, it's more than possible for you to either start a new clan or take up the Uzumaki name as a clan name again and gather the remaining survivors of the Uzumaki and restart the clan with you as the clan head. WHWAA Naruto stopped short his almost full-blown shout clamping on his mouth with a hand. We believe that you would be a trustworthy clan head, said Shibi courtly. You mean it's actually possible? Said Naruto in disbelief. Hiashi quickly caught on and said, wait, you mean you had considered? Well, not so much as considering, but during some missions I actually met people that might had some relation to the legendary Uzumakis, so obviously I started to wonder, but it seemed too far-fetched and I was middle of a mission, so always kinda discarded the idea. Then when I learned of my mom and dad I actually started to wonder, but again it just seems too out of it, you know. Being a clan leader jumpstart the Uzumaki lineage again, and the council position kinda seems like something tiresome. Ahahahahaha. You actually are more sharp than they give you credit, but you're too humble about it, and yes, those damn meetings are annoying as fuck, but oh well, sometime good things come out of them, laughed like crazy the Inuzuka head while wiping some tears of her eyes. The last part said with a somewhat amused tone. Anyway, like we said, it's quite possible for you to do this, and what we really wanted to give you was our full support if you so decided to go for it. Nothing would make more happy than making you a clan head, said Hiashi with expectation and a slight feel of camaraderie. At first he thought of supporting Naruto as a manner of thanks and repentance for all that he had done for his family and all that he had done to him either directly or indirectly. Yet a small fraction of him was elated to possibly have as a comrade and fellow clan head the hero of Konoha and all the elemental nations. Also, the obvious crush of her daughter on him was not lost to Hiashi and planned to help her as much as he could. Though he'd have to be moderate about it. Wow, that's a little too much to swallow right now, Hiashi-san, said Naruto, still not sure what to do and to be honest a little afraid of the trust he was finally being entrusted to. The irony of that was not missed by the blonde ninja that ever so slightly smirked at the thought. Don't sweat it, kid, we just wanted to tell you the idea and let you know that you have our full support, even if you were to turn it down, know that the Inuzuka clan is honor bound to you, said Tsume with a full-blown smile. As the Hyuga, just ask and we shall put our full might into it, said Hiashi, little annoyed that Tsume had beaten him to it. So is the Abiram, said Shibi neutrally. Hey. Get in line, if a clan it's gonna be honor bound to the soon-to-be 7th Hokage will be the Nara clan, as I'm gonna make damn sure as his right hand that this hyperactive knucklehead fills that spot, as much of a drag that will be, said Shikamaru, cutting in the conversation and slightly glaring at the other clan heads. The others were stunned to say the least, seeing the master of laziness being so passionate about something. Then our soon-to-be 7th is gonna be in the best hands possible, your dad and Asuma are proud of you, clan head Shikamaru, said Tsume with uncharacteristic formality with a tender gaze. Naruto just stood there now, very not sure what the hell was going on now. Ahahahahaha, kid, now you're too deep in this shit to back out, roared Kurum, almost falling on the ground from the laughter. Is being a Kage a trend between the Jinchuriki now or what? Wondered aloud the San Tanuki. Nary dear, you're gonna to work very hard from now on, said Kakuo in a motherly voice. I know, responded after recuperating from the shock with a sheepish grin. Thank you all, I don't think I can give you a response now, but I'll consider everything you told me, answered Naruto to the clan heads in front of him. I know, Naruto, for now let's celebrate, said Shikamaru, returning to his usual looks with a slight smirk. The other clan heads agreed and excused themselves. After that, Naruto looked for Sasuke and found him still in the bar, sitting and drinking a cup of sake with some snacks. He waved through the crowd and sat beside him. He ordered a brand of sake that knew from his travels with Uraya that he fancied, Fuji Ryase. Hope you're here all alone because Sakura-chan is being held up with Oba-chan, Team Sasuke just chuckled a little while glancing at Sakura, still trying to get away from a full-blown drunk Tsunade. I'd rather unseal Kagaya again and duck out round 2 than get in the way of a drunk goddamn. Can't believe I'm actually agreeing with you, team, but yeah, that's better than becoming Oba-chan's drinking beauty. So care to tell me what's in your agenda? If you leave again, Sakura's gonna cry. I already talked with her, I'll return, but for now I need some time alone to think about my mistakes and figure out what I'll do to support the village and earn a bit of redemption. Idiot, you of all should know that plans don't always if ever go as you thought them up. HMP, grunted Sasuke, however he didn't deny it. Either way, I also been considering a timeout to sort out my thoughts. It's also time you answer Hyuga's heiress feelings. I know, answered Naruto, slightly unsure on that respect. Do you? Shut up, team, that's one thing I have to sort out. I have sorta mixed feelings with Niji's death. Sasuke didn't press any further as he saw that Naruto actually was trying to cope with it. So when do you leave? After Sarada's been born and we settle the clan house in order. Good. The party had actually lasted till sunrise and almost everyone was totally wasted and quite literally waddled themselves back home, of course Naruto and Tsunade being of the some few that actually resisted the high doses of constant alcohol served through the night. In his apartment was Naruto after some good sleep and a good shower. Admiring his new Anbu set of clothes. It consisted of a standard set uniform, but also with an added leader marking in his jacket, shinobi war armor and a pure white Anbu mask. However, when grabbed it, the mask got paint markings that flashed between designs that Naruto figured were the 9 Biju. Gotta say that's cool, said an hyperactive Chaume in a buzz. It's a nice detail, I like it, purred Matatabi. I know, said Naruto with grin. Just then Naruto felt a presence behind him, however it was a warm, pleasant, caring and motherly presence. Nevertheless, being a ninja, he whirled around while taking out a kunai. What he saw almost made him gasp for air. There stood, if not slightly hovering, the most beautiful woman since Kagaya, bathed in a kind golden light, flashing him a tender smile. Relax Naruto, I mean you no harm, can you trust me on that? Since becoming a sage and mastering Kurama's chakra, he had become more sensitive to emotions, especially bad ones, and since he felt no ill will he relaxed a little. He also noted that none of the Biju had sensed her earlier, but also agreed that she bore no ill will. Thank you, now I'm sure might be a little difficult to believe, but… Are you a goddess? Interrupted her, not with a gawking stare like she most of time received between mortals. This was more of a asseveration that was wanted to be confirmed. Yes I am, how did you figured so? Said the goddess surprised. Well, you give off an aura similar to that of Kagaya, however yours more packed or dense and feels leagues above hers now actually surprised her and made her chuckle, go figure he'd sorted out so simply. Yes that's right, I'm a goddess, I'm the goddess of the sun Amaterasu, and before anything the black flames of the Uchiha are just a small part of my authorities or godly powers, a steeled one by my brother Susanoo at that. Oh so what can I help you with Amaterasu-sama, said Naruto, now a little nervous, and blushed. Amaterasu smiled tenderly again. People and gods had the habit of just prostrating themselves without actually looking at her, this was refreshing. Well Naruto, you must know that your feat with Kagaya, it's not a small one. I know that you're probably thinking that your victory belongs to your entire team. This is true, however it's also a fact that you were the driving force that made it happen. Seeing he remained silent she continued, and while I'd love to let you enjoy more time of peace and have a respite, I'm in need to ask you a favor of great importance, Naruto noted. What would you need of me, Amaterasu-sama? Gone was the insecurity. I'm not allowed to interfere too much with mortals' lives, however a looming threat is coming upon us, both mortals and gods. You see Naruto, there's a lot of worlds or realms. Like the summoning realms of the contract clans. Yes, that's right. However, a lot of these realms are similar to your world in the aspect that they're people's realms. I'm in need of sending you to another world to help stop a war or to aid in it, so it's not as catastrophic and stop a rising evil. That's awfully vague, Amaterasu-sama, she cited. I know, but as I told you, we can't interfere too much with mortals, and we're bound also to let you govern by yourselves, so unless one were to go against heavenly law, your rules and government are as binding to us as the ancient decrees. Naruto stood there humming to himself when it hit him. What if you issued an official request to the village? Now that was a novel idea, thinking about it, it wasn't a foolproof method, but it stood somewhat in the middle. Instead of breaking the heavenly decree, it was more of a bending. Amaterasu mused over it for a while, perhaps if she got help of a deity of the target world and did so in a human incarnation. It might be possible with a few arrangements, but give me a few days, said, finally beaming with happiness. Please make some arrangements, Naruto. Of course, if you need anything else let me know, Amaterasu-chan, said Naruto, realizing too late his disrespect. Sorry. Don't worry, Naruto giggled Amaterasu. Now there's another matter I need to talk about with you, said Amaterasu, smirking. Couple of days later. With the help of Ananke, primordial of fate and daughter of chaos, Amaterasu presented herself in mortal flesh, based in the Peach Princess legend, so I have my background, it's not just because, bearing a request from the earth ruled by the Olympians, and presented it to Tsunade. Getting past the initial shock, a cage level top secret ban was invoked, with only need to know basis, those being the 5 cages, Naruto and his team and Kakashi, as he was close to becoming Hokage. Naruto was tasked to travel to the Olympian-ruled Earth under the guise of a half-blood of Ananke, along with his Anbu team, which consisted of an approved since beginning Shikamaru, a quite surprisingly assertive Hinata, and extra member provided by Amaterasu later on. In this world, Naruto needed to avoid a full-blown all-out war between Olympian and Titans, or in case of not being able to avoid it, to lessen its damage. The reason being that someone was actually pitting them against each other, and this threat wouldn't be contained just in that realm. The team would gather info on this matter and report it to either Amaterasu or the cages. They would have some support from Amaterasu, but further info would not be disclosed until they discovered more by themselves, as their little trick also had its limits. The team was warned that this would be a long-term assignment. As final help, they were given a few gifts by the cages to help them. Mei gave Naruto the Kubikurumchim, seeing his past with its last wielder, and the fact that Naruto's near-infinite stamina and battled style suited the sword's secret ability, and trained them for 1 month. Inoki took their Anbu armors and made them be strengthened using lava, gum and dust jutsus, and also trained for 1 month. I trained them hellishly for 1 month and gave them enhanced chakra conductive weapons. Gaara also trained them and gave them the best storage seals in existence as well, giving Naruto a few pointers with Shikaku's abilities. Finally Tsunade obviously trained them even more hellishly than I and prepared for them a heavy stash of medicine pills and medical compounds as she also teach them to make basic medicines. All cages provided scrolls with their village's specialties jutsus and useful techniques. Finally Amaterasu, stretching a few boundaries, gave them a primordial blessing, difference from a normal one that this one would adapt itself for the user. Though it would confer them all three, an ancient understandment, Shikamaru, watch out Lelich, physical boost and an added power in accordance with the user nature, not Naruto, or not keep guessing. Finally after roughly 5 months it was departure time, but the only people there were the cages and Amaterasu. They stood in the center of a summoned circle. Alright, soon Anki will summon you all to her realm, remember to keep your true objectives hidden seeing as you likely to stand out somewhat anyway, said Tsunade sternly but very concerned. I gotta say brat, this type of cooperation until the past war was unheard of, better not waste my effort, said I. Be careful you all, and return safely, brother, said Gaara as he and Naruto had bonded as brother during their training. Give him hell and make them fear the Shinobi Alliance, said Inoki grinning evilly. May approached Naruto, I'm sure you'll do great and know that I might consider forming a more close relationship with Konoha when you return, said May, as at the last part gave Naruto a kiss in the very corner of his lips. Before several people could even say something, Amaterasu's eyes flashed and said. It's time. I'll take you halfway, and they flashed out of view. Believe it. Was the last thing Naruto had chance to say all. Line break. Inside a sort of light tunnel Naruto's squad were getting ready as well as Amaterasu gave them a last instruction. Let me remind you that first thing to do you must learn as much as you can on the Greek pantheon. They all nodded. And lastly let me introduce you to your last team member. There was Silver Flash and the person that came out made Shikamaru and Hinata go full battle mode. Guys, calm down please. Amaterasu-chan will explain it. They lowered their weapons but remained guarded as teen version of Kagaya stepped to a side of the true goddess. Now I'll make things quick. Kagaya says that she is repentant of her actions. I and Naruto believe her, however that's not enough, yet Shikamaru couldn't help but nod as such. She has been placed in a servitude contract to Naruto, and in her request, Naruto has complete authority over her existence. From how strong she is, her abilities, and if he so wished it Naruto could kill her with it though. Every time she disobeys she will be punished severely. Amaterasu gave a nod to Naruto, and he clearly against something sided and focused. Then a howling shout of pain ruptured from Kagaya's mouth as she dropped to the floor writhing in pain, crying blood and throwing up heavily. Naruto interrupted whatever he did and Kagaya stopped shouting but laid bare on floor visibly over the edge, not able to stand up. As you see, she is unable to endanger you or your mission in any way. I don't ask you to forgive her, just to trust me and that she'll be a loyal companion in your mission. Shikamaru realized that despite himself a small part of him had those serves you right, but quickly reprimanded himself. If Naruto could forgive her, then he had to. After all, Naruto life was one of the most severely affected by her past schemes. Hinata suddenly approached her and helped her to stand. I don't know if I'll ever be capable to forgive you, but Naruto and Kami trust you to help us, so I'll trust you. So if you betray that trust Naruto has given you, not even Kami-sama, she'll be able to save you from my wrath. Kagaya nodded and said a tearful thank you. Shikamaru closed in and also helped. As they looked up to Naruto they saw him giving them a foxy grin and a thumbs up. That threat, it's a very valid little Kagaya. Looks like we're arriving, get ready. And another flash came by and they landed in gloomy forest, which seemed cute compared with the forest of death. In the distance they saw a group of teens running from a bullman thing. 2 girls, a boy and a sort of goat boy. Erupt, said sharply Naruto, and they all put their Anbu masks and zipped up their jackets. Naruto's mask painted itself with red markings that resembled a snarling fox, Hinata's a blue swallow and Shikamaru's a black owl. While Kagaya kimono turned black, shortened and became battle ready with breastplate, arm guards, leggings, and a fishnet over her body. Shikamaru, do you have a spare radio set? Asked Naruto. Hi, catch it rabbit. Now put the bud into your ear and clip the radio piece inside your kimono, answered Shikamaru, knowing what Naruto wanted, and tossed the set to Kagaya, who followed instructions while a little put off with the nickname. She wasn't sure if it was an insult or he just didn't want to speak to her by name. Good, Swallow and I will act as vanguard, Owl will be ran asses the field, and Rabbit you will remain up and hidden in the trees. If the situation calls for it, you'll provide a distraction for cover for to escape. Remember that to speak to us you have to press the button in the radio piece, then speak. I understand, Naruto-sama. This got a groan from Naruto, but he didn't say anything else. Shikamaru smirked under his mask at Naruto's reluctance for honorifics. Okay, maintain radio silence, it will be a flash strike, said Naruto as they closed into the kids that were running but remained hidden in the upper branches of the trees. The bullman was onto them but was stupid and waited clumsily between the trees, yet it seemed to home directly to the group of kids. A single click sound was heard in everyone's radios and they looked up to see Shikamaru hand signing them. The bull. Small eyes. Maybe blind. Big nose. He trust. Smell informed Shikamaru as they all nodded and noted the fact. In kids. Nowhere. Go. Run general. Direction. There added Hinata pointing the general direction the kids were running to. Shave numbers. Wait chance. Strike. Retrieve target. Escort safety instructed Naruto. They all nodded as Naruto and Hinata sprang to action. Shikamaru closed into the group and Kagaya went up a few more branches and waited for the moment. As the group of monsters was chasing the teens, Naruto closed into 5 black wool things with red eyes. Naruto hand signed and used Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. 10 clones of himself appeared in a small cloud of smoke and charged to the beasts with wind chakra enhanced kunes. Naruto and his clones parted and sprinted to the sides and ambushed them going for the throat. The wolf in the middle realized the intruders and tired to back off, but Naruto used vacuum blade jutsu to kill it off. Hinata dropped on 3 bat-like women, landing on the one in the middle and delivering to the 2 on the sides. 8 trigrams vacuum pounce effectively, killing them in a golden dust cloud. The remaining Batwoman barely had time to process what was happening as a lighting enhanced kunai staved her in the back of the neck, thus also killing it. Shit. Fall back, one of them it's trying to buy time to the others was heard on the radios as Shikamaru cursed. Naruto and Hinata dashed forward trying to catch up to the kids group. Shikamaru was still annoyed at the girl, he was counting on that they would keep running that way Naruto and Hinata would have time to return. Albeit the girl braved the bullman to give time to her companions, by the looks of it they were at whatever shelter they were running off to doorsteps. He glanced to Naruto and Hinata. They were closing in and only 5 to 7 seconds away, but those seconds would prove to be very precious to this girl. Shikamaru tried to gain some time and stepped in launching some smoke bombs directly to the beast's snout, hoping the sulfur and powder would hurt the bullman's sense of smell. What the fuck? Was heard from the girl in question. The bullman started trashing and screaming around as Shikamaru's prediction came true and it was hurt and disoriented. Next he used his shadow binding jutsu immobilize the thing and let Naruto or Hinata take it out. His shadow extended and dashed through the forest floor and connected with the beast's shadow, however 2 things happened at the same time. 1. The girl noticing the strange shadow winding up to she still smoke-covered bullman, took a few steps forward intrigued. 2. The bullman was in swing of his club, although his arm now immobilized the inertia of the club, made it hurl itself of his hand and hit the girl by the side with the shaft. Naruto seeing the whole thing got agitated and flashed into his cloaked form. The Damara Sengen shouted Naruto clearly angered. The giant ball of spiraling chakra drilled through the bullman and before the scene got gory, it exploded in a cloud of gold dust. Naruto quickly realizing his mistake turned off the cloaked form. Hinata arrived behind Naruto realizing what had upsetted him. Her heart cringed when she saw the figure of the girl with her side ill, caved in by the impact of the club. As she and Naruto got closer they could hear her raspy breathing. With their training and war experience they knew that she had internal bleeding and most likely a punctured lung. The blood probably filling said lung, going by the gurgling sound that came from her inspirations. Her pain was very apparent in her face, despite this when they approached her she managed to speak. Did they, cough, make it? Naruto glanced in the direction the other kids ran off to and saw despite some weird fog, a group of gathering people behind an imaginary line, among them at the very front was the group of kids. Naruto assuming the Anbu persona remained silent and only nodded but crouched over her and caressed her cheek. Thank the gods. She managed to say and her eyes began to lose their light in a manner all too familiar to the trio. As they all were going to let out a mournful sigh and lift a prayer for her brave soul. Kagaya's voice was heard over the radio. Watch out. Pull back. She shouted and reflexively Hinata and Naruto jumped back. Not a second later a bolt of lightning struck the dying girl and transformed her in a rapidly growing tree that upon completing its growth projected a sort of field that connected itself with other trees and seemed to create a perimeter. Out of this perimeter a man in a wheelchair emerged and stared at them. Naruto was still somewhat taken aback of what had happened to the girl as he heard Shikamaru's voice. He's using an illusion. He used the release technique and mentally said Kai. The illusion was gone and he raised an eyebrow at the now man horse that approached them. Chiron on his part was both extremely sad and curious of what had just happened in front of his eyes. He noticed the approaching monsters and saw the new half-blood seeking refuge and although that they had lost just one of them was being lucky, as grimly as that was. It was a common sight to him through the centuries, but the unusual things were the masked warriors that had managed to defeat most of the monster apparently without any effort and seemingly appeared out of nowhere. Then one of them had destroyed. The Minotaur after some explosions on its face were set off. Then the other thing was the fact that Zeus himself had spared the brave girls that bout time for her companions. That most probably meant she was his daughter, that in the sheer amount of monsters released in her hunt. "Greetings warriors, I must thank you for your assistance," of the young demigods eyed. "What happened to the girl?" interrupted Naruto. "I'm afraid that she must have been the daughter of the head Olympian, seeing as she was struck by lightning," said Chiron, quickly noticing the Japanese-like language, but not quite so, more like an Orient mix with heavy inclination to Japanese. Nevertheless, Chiron answered so matter-of-fact. "So?" responded Naruto in seething anger. Chiron, strange by this, mumbled before deciding to further explain in an ingrained didactic tone. "Well, you see, a stranger, as the big three vowed to never had children after the World War II, any child they might sire off will be hunted upon and killed by the hounds and monster of hell. Apparently Lord Zeus decided to spare her soul from death by transforming her into the tree that you see now." As Chiron was wondering if he didn't knew of the vow because he was from Orient, he cringed in fear as a massive wave of killing intent was directed at him. "So she had to pay the crimes of her father. What kind of messed up reason is that?" yelled Naruto as the voices of the 9 Bijus, minus Jaiuki, he has his chakra, but he remains in Killer Bee, flared up and laced themselves to his own. Adding to this, his mask responded to the increase in chakra and flashed between the markings of all the Bijus. All of this combined made Naruto look like a demon's incarnation. Chiron actually caved in and fell to his knees, not daring to look up. This person was no mythical creature, he could feel that, and most likely he was a demigod, but the presence and power that rolled off him could well be at the same level that of the 12 heads of Olympus. "Although I know what you mean, it simply is as ancient law dictates." He regretted this as the anger just doubled. "And you simply stood there not doing anything. There was nothing I could do as much as I'd want to. We're forbidden to do so, and what can we do upon the god's judgment?" As Chiron was reading himself for another blast of anger and killing intent, it quickly faded and he braved to look up and saw a third warrior with a mask similar to the other two, but with a design of an owl. Again he appeared seemingly out of nowhere and without a sound. Said warrior was patting the shoulder of the one with the demonic voice and whispered something. And just like that, on an invisible cue, they all faded in swirl of wind and leaves. Chiron was just completely stunned. He only got back up when he realized that Groover Underwood was approaching him with the 2 new half-bloods. "What were they? Who were they, Chiron? What was that booming voice?" said Groover, completely awed and astonished as he only knew Chiron balk like that in front the gods. "I don't know, Mr. Underwood, I truly don't, but I can tell you that they were not happy at all with Miss Thalia," answered Groover. Miss Thalia's fate. That got a faint smile on the boy and complicated expression upon the blonde girl. "I'll say, suddenly it felt as the Council of 12 were raining down on me. Look, even some of the campers fainted from the sheer pressure," said Groover, as he pointed at the several campers that has quite effectable pissed their pants and blacked out, either out of fear or because the sheer amount of presence. Getting over the shock, Chiron started to walk back into the campgrounds, instructing the campers that were still conscious to help the unconscious ones and to Groover to start the usual introductions to the new arrivals. Meanwhile, Chiron headed to the library to find out more about these strange warriors. Only problem, they didn't have much of Oriental literature. Maybe some of the graduates could send him some. Line break. Naruto, Hinata and Shikamaru converged with Kagaya a few miles away deep in the thicket of a tree. Their arrival had certainly been upbeat, but now they needed to calm down and figure out it happened and what to do onwards. "Okay, I figure I speak for all here when I say, what the fuck was that?" said Naruto in a near shout. "For now we know that those kids were being persecuted because of their origin. According to the horseman, one of them was daughter of the big 3. I'm assuming a chief god. These demigods, as he called them, appear to not be well received, but there seems to be a safe haven of sorts in there," said Shikamaru, pointing in the direction of where the barrier stood. "And the deities are in some sort of constant quarrel, seeing as the monsters earlier are some sort of hunting beasts. As to what exactly happened to the girl, I can't be completely sure, but seems she was put on some sort of sealing or stasis," concluded Shikamaru from what he had seen and the demeanor of the horseman, namely Chiron. "And everyone just cowers in fear and hopes they're not the next one to get zapped out of existence," said Naruto angrily. "Kagaya, how did you know beforehand the bolt was coming down?" asked Inara. "Yeah," Kagaya-chan followed Naruto. "Of course, Naruto-sama, I felt a gathering aura of something of similar nature to the Shinju's chakra, albeit somewhat different and more degraded, less thick would be a way to put it, though I'm not entirely sure yet. Be as it be," said Kagaya, noticing she was trailing of I felt the gathering of energy in the sky and it targeted like some sort of homing beacon the child in question. "If I might add, it seems the child was indeed put in a sealed state, preventing her death yet keeping her at a mere inch. So to say, of death," reported coolly Kagaya. "Damn it," cursed silently Naruto, punching the wooden branch, cracking it a bit. "Naruto-kun," said softly Hinata as she put her hand on top his. "Is there a way to help her?" Naruto asked Kagaya. I'm not sure Naruto-sama, it may be, but I would have to analyze the stasis field and the girls in question, but that would require you to release my abilities up to cage level at least, maybe even more, even then I may be unsuitable to do the deed. We may try to release the girl at a later date, right now it would draw too much unwanted attention, said Shikamaru, petting Naruto's shoulder, knowing he wouldn't leave the issue easily. Naruto just nodded in understanding, hating not being to help her right now. Naruto-sama, I would like enough power to set up a warding around us, it seems that some deities here are screening for us, said suddenly Kaguya as she perked up as she had heard an invisible call. Okay, come here quickly, Naruto signaled as Kaguya came closer and he in a swift move stabbed her his hand in the chest, showing her obvious pain at the maneuver. Heavenly Law Protocol enacted. Technique seals from level 1 to 5 removed, technique shall be maintained till threat disappears or is indicated otherwise. Subject shall remain at level 1 strength, droned Kaguya with an impassive and dead look as her third eye opened and started spinning crazily. The team felt a tingling sensation around them and then she closed her forehead eye. It's done, said Kaguya as her facial expression softened and regained her now more human look. Good, the last thing we want is having someone on our backs. From what I gather these gods are not likely our targets. They're too open about their presence. We should set up a camp, said thoughtfully Hinata. Agreed, and we need to start gathering info about this world. We should seek in village or urban area and set camp somewhat near it. Also we need to figure out what this primordial blessing has conferred us. They all nodded in agreement and darted out. After a while they came with a road of black stone, yeah they can't know what's a highway, and decided to follow it from the sides in hopes to arrive to a populated area. Along the way they saw machines that somewhat reminded them of the spring snow country's technology and vehicles, yet different. After a while they began to see some lights in the distance and the first building from a city in view. They decided this was close enough and started to set up camp still in the forest. When they were ready they could see that morning was coming close. I'll take watch, said Hinata. Thank you, Hinata-chan, tomorrow you can rest for a while, then we start to gather intel, said Naruto, half offering half instructing. Hinata smiled sweetly and thankfully the last 5 months training weren't a waste and she managed to keep in check a coming blush. Line break. The next morning as Hinata rested from her watch Naruto decided to start meditating, however he stumbled upon a very intriguing and frustrating problem. When he started to gather nature energy he noticed that not only it was harder but also the energy felt hollow. Almost like an echo of what should be. Boy kid, what's with this ghost energy you're picking up, said Kurama as he lazily woke up still tired from the world transfer. I'm not sure buddy, not only it's harder to feel the nature energy, but also it like I'm sensing a shadow or the silhouette of something buried. You're picking up the yang side of nature energy that you're used to, being buried by the yin side. Seems in this world the earth's power is dominated by the feminine yin side, said so matter-of-factly Shukaku, now somewhat awake. What? Meanwhile the fates were searching frenetically for the massive disturbance that suddenly appeared on their weaving of lives. They were almost on it, but then it suddenly vanished and this greatly disturbed the three sisters. It should not be possible for anyone to escape their presence, for they are the fates and we all have a place and purpose, themselves included. This troubles me greatly, sisters, said Clotho. Yes, the weavings were greatly shifted and some strings are so tense they might snap before time at any moment, responded Lachesis. Yet the new strings that weave themselves are untouchable to us, added Atropos. This must be fixed, the change is too great and it hasn't ended, should it continue the prelude shan't come to pass and the events won't unfold to their written end, sentenced Lachesis. Up in Olympus was a very confused Apollo as several of his prophecies were starting to fade and twist in unexpected ways. Some changed completely, others faded altogether, and a few were still there, but it was like watching blurred image or having double vision. As if there were two alternative futures and both still valid. Quite disconcerting, he figured he could ask the fates if they were having a similar issue, but decided against it unless absolutely necessary. He really didn't like the three crones. Unlike them, Apollo's foresight came from the actions taken and the consequences they would have, making his power different in essence, even if the end result was similar. However, Apollo hadn't had this problem in millennia since he first got his domains, even then it wasn't as bad as now. While Apollo was lost in thought, the state in the council hall was as one might expect, considering the king of the gods had broken his bow and sired a demigod. Zeus was blatantly ignoring his fault and raging against Hades for sending so many kindly ones against his daughter, while Hera was seething against her husband but holding it in to keep her image of the queen of Olympus. Everyone knew that even if she looked serene she was going to get back at Zeus at a later time. All in all, between Zeus and Poseidon shouting at each other, Hera's silent rage and the rest of council amusement or indifference at the familiar bout, it was almost lost to all the brief interference and later banishing of the unknown warriors. The only ones to not forget about it were the goddess of strategic war and knowledge Athena and Artemis, goddess of maidens, fertility, hunt and the moon. Each for their own reasons wanted to meet with the mystery warriors, and they would do so, but not like they envision it, not even the gods can always have it go their way. While the Olympians were in their usual fights, Naruto was still struggling trying to get in tune with this world's nature energy. According to Shukaku, in this world the predominating aspect of nature energy was the yin side as opposed to his own where it was the yang side. He was able to deduce it thanks to his more direct affinity to the earth in nature than most of the Bijus. According to him, Naruto would either have to learn to draw the yin side of nature from scratch or try to draw on the buried yang side to him. The later being a little risky but the most direct method. Risky in what manner, asked Kurama, a little skeptical. Screw you, Kurama, why should I tell you? Please Shukaku, you know it's for Naruto's sake, said Kakuo in a motherly tone, but still slapped him and Kurama with her tails. Alright, from what I figure the brat it's going to have to take a consciousness dive into the nature energy and quite literally reach out to the yang energy buried and drag it out. It's not gonna be a walk in the park, mind you, he's going to have to steady himself against the flow of energy or risk losing himself in the vastness of the earth's energy flow. Will we be able to help him? Isobu asked courtly. Yeah, we should be able to, answered Shukaku. You got all that, kid? Yeah, got the general idea, must say I'm really glad you guys will be with me. By the way, you think it's possible to make a sort of anchor or save point? That's actually a good idea, commented Son Goku. Some of us could do that, though your teammates could serve as a last resort measure, added Chao-mei. Agreed, approved Seiken. I feel you should wait till your friends are ready, Naru-kun, said Matatabi worriedly. Yeah, sounds like it'll be quite the trip. Becoming a stone will be the last of your worries, said Kurama, though gave Naruto a shiver. Still, I want to test something out with our chakra mode. Meanwhile, Shikamaru returned from his patrol on the perimeter to see Hinata coming out of the tent and Naruto deep in meditation. He figured Naruto was checking out the feel of nature energy in this world. Hinata was all geared up and handed her some hares that he caught, followed by the odd scene of Kagaya wanting to learn to cook the hares. He looked back at Naruto and noticed that he still had yet to enter full sage mode as the usual orange markings under his eyes hadn't appeared yet. However, suddenly he felt Naruto chakra spike and almost knock the air from his lungs, if not for already seen the chakra mode already during the war. Naruto's body, still in his meditation pose, flashed to intense yellow and orange flames. Just like before, the power was just rolling of Naruto, and just being near him, one would feel like the tiredness was washed away, however this time they felt more intense and something strange happened. The flames started to shimmer and flicker till they changed color and turned to a more pale sandy yellow with dark brown outlines. Then flickered again and turned blue with swirling black lines, changed again to deep green and light red, then to crimson red and yellow, another change and they were gray with white, yet another flick and turned aqua green, passed to a deep bluish black with intense yellow, turned purple with inky black, and returned to their original color. Shikamaru was surprised. He figured the change was due to the other Bijuu's chakra, however even during the war, the chakra mode remained being the Kyuubi's chakra cloak while applying the other Bijuu's chakra to his techniques. He was brought out of his musings as another change occurred. Naruto chakra suddenly spiked again, then settled down, it even felt less intensely, but the surprise was that his flames were now platinum white with silver outlines as they swayed slowly in a calm and hypnotic rate. It was at this time that he heard Hinata whisper. Such dense energy. It's almost like the Shinju, no his chakra it's too calm for that, the Shinju it's a force of nature, it only reacts to change barely conscious of itself, said Kagaya, not realizing she spoke aloud. How so? Asked Shikamaru. Kagaya startled herself and answered. Well, the Shinju, despite being a deity, had simply too much raw power, so he was mostly unable to direct much of his conscious to anything other to keep it in check. Shikamaru pondered a little. Much like when Naruto couldn't make proper clones or henges because of the insane amounts of chakra he always had made it difficult to mold it. Although there's a little more to it, seems like reasonable example, answered Kagaya. Looks like we managed to link our chakras, but the mind melding is unexpected. Spoke suddenly Naruto with a voice laced in various tones and pitches. Shikamaru deduced that those must be the Bijuu's voices. Then just as sudden the chakra cloak wore off and Naruto was groaning and rubbing his head in pain. Are you alright, Naruto-kun? Approached worriedly Hinata, followed by Kagaya in a more demure manner. Yeah, sort of, it was really unexpected. What exactly happened? From what you said it seems you fused the Bijuu's chakra. Yeah, that was what we're trying to see, whether or not I could borrow the chakra of the guys for my chakra cloak mode. Once we saw it was fairly easy, we tried if it was possible to use all their chakra at once, it took some effort, but for a moment we managed. The thing is that our minds, somehow someway, got connected, it got really weird at that point, said Naruto with another groan. Shikamaru considered this. You may be onto something, but better leave that for later, we still got to find a base of operations and get familiar with this world, especially the language. You're right, Kagaya, you think that you can use something like the human path without the killing part to get a quick reading of the language here. Yes, I believe it should be possible with my current level without much problem, Naruto-sama. We'll need a place to set up and leave the camp as a backup meeting point, but that it's going to need money from this world most likely, said Shikamaru. Naruto quickly unsealed something from his wrist. Still got some of the Ero Seinen novels as a good luck charm, we may be able to translate them and get some quick money publishing them. I'm willing to bet even here there are perverts, said Naruto in a nostalgic voice while showing them an Icha book. Shikamaru chuckled and Hinata blushed slightly while Kagaya tilted her head in confusion. That's actually a good idea, it's worth a try, conceded Shikamaru. Like that, they got ready and leave the camp, setting up a few barriers and markers to hide it in protection. They moved through the woods and neared the city. Once they were upon it, they actually were impressed with the tall edifications, some of them being as tall as the Hokage mountain. They realized though that the cities here were not made with war or an invasion in mind. The Nara clan had deducted that in this world mustn't have a lot of frequent wars. At least not full open ones apparently. The culture here and technology seemed too different. He silently thanked that Kagaya would be able to get a quick sample of the language, cause he figured without it would have been very bothersome start learning from scratch. They went from building to building on the rooftops. Since entering the city they realized that there weren't any sort of barriers or warding seals, they moved more at ease. Racing by paths that the people seemed to not be able to go through. As they were observing from the rooftops they noticed that in an alley near what would seem to be a school. If the kids and classrooms were something to go by, were bullying a indeed. While she was hopelessly outnumbered, she was quite the fighter, pushing back and yelling at the kids. Naruto frowned and decided not to let this go. He jumped down in front of them, stunning them all, then while remaining silent quite eerily tilted his head and made his Anbu mask flash quickly through the Biju designs. The boys who couldn't make head or tails of this tried to fled but almost pissed themselves as a second masked man, twin to the other one, was blocking their escape route while shaking his finger. The message was clear. You're not getting away. Shikamaru chuckled a little, understanding where Naruto was coming from and for old time's sake to aid him. He casted a light genjutsu, making Naruto seem more menacing and menacing by the second. The kids tried again, going back, and were met by paint bomb that converted them in walking modern art pieces. Naruto then grabbed the boy that seemed to be the leader and lifted him. The goons at this point didn't even notice the clone dispelling and decided to make a run for it. Naruto then pointed to the girl, then poked the boy's chest and shook his head in negation. Kagaya, please read his mind, said the masked man, startling the girl and the boy as they didn't understand one bit. Then much to boy's dismay and the girl's surprise, a beautiful girl appeared again out of nowhere. She had untarnished white skin and silvery hair and dotted eyebrows, with a delicate frame but the utmost grace. Neared the boy, startling him by her white-gray pupilless eyes. When she revealed her blood-red third eye in her forehead, the boy simply passed out with white froth on his mouth. Kagaya placed her index and middle fingers in his forehead for a moment. Then she simply lifted them and approached Naruto and did the same. Naruto then turned to the girl and said, "You okay?" The girl was simply too out of it. After a few seconds she collected her thoughts. "Why, yeah, thanks. You were very brave, but you were severely outnumbered and I dislike bullies a lot, so decided to intervene." "Who are you?" asked the girl to her savers. "I'm Kitsune, fox, and she's Yusa, rabbit," said Naruto, while his mask design returned to the fox one. Then they disappeared in the wind. "I'm Rachel, thank you very much," shouted Rachel as hard as she could, hoping they had heard her. They had. "Still the prankster I see," said amused Shikamaru. Naruto just grinned and made a thumb up sign. Kagaya then proceeded to give Shikamaru and Hinata the knowledge of this world language, which was an unsettling sensation to Hinata, not used to mind transfer information. From there Naruto made a few clones and instructed to look for any sort of thug or a mugger and strip him bare of clothing and money. He then sends 4 of them to look for a library and a publishing editorial after they get some civilian clothes. Shikamaru put his 2 cents and created with some effort another 4 shadow clones and sent them with Naruto's own. From there it went pretty quickly. The clones returned with some clothes for them apart, the ones the other clones had gotten, and even some girl ones. Naruto muttered something about that being too quick to his liking. They decided to return to camp and wait for the clones to dispel themselves. Once in camp, Hinata and Shikamaru decided to experiment with their blessings and see exactly what they could with them. Much to their surprise, the simple physical boost wasn't that simple, as it made as strong and fats as Naruto when in Sage mode, or at least very close to it when they actively used it. Passively it augmented their chakra reserves by 3 to 5 times. Also the blessing gave them powers straight out of the Bloodline Limit stories. Shikamaru was able to boost his shadow abilities to the point that he could use any shadow in at least 10 km radius. Maybe more if he strained himself, without the need to touch it directly. In addition, he could actually solidify them and use the shadows as shields or weapons of incredible hardness and sharpness. As they withstand it in Adama Rasengan. What more, Shikamaru could travel from shadow to shadow with little effort. If he concentrated enough, he could even pull it off with shadows as small as a hand. Hinata, on her part, besides her physical boost, discovered that she was able to project powerful bursts of chakra remotely from her body without much trouble. It was similar to Tsunade's super strength, but the difference was that Hinata could concentrate the same amount of chakra in her finger strikes of the gentle fist, and she could fire the strike in the distance with enough control and little loss of potency. Naruto shuddered as he pictured a strike with enough power to shatter boulders concentrated in a tonketsu point. Similarly, she could project a cover around her body that acted like an armor, without the need to use the 8 trigrams palms revolving heaven. Again, she was able to combine this power with her techniques, empowering them more. For the next few weeks they spend their time getting the hang of their new powers, as well as setting up an apartment with the early earnings of the recently published Icha Icha first book, which was an astounding success as predicted by Naruto. He was getting calls from the editorial requesting the second volume, but Shikamaru advised him to wait a few more weeks to do it, as to keep a steady influx of realized books while keeping the readers in waiting. Naruto agreed and decided to honor his sensei, taking up his name as pen name. As such, the author named the Toad Sage. Jiraiya made his debut. While Hinata had mixed feelings about it, she certainly preferred the apartment they had rented with the cash they were receiving. Setting up their identities wasn't that hard, as at first they only needed to henge themselves and apply light genjutsus here and there. After a while they had enough money to get forged identities. It was during one of such times that they noticed as if some force tried to convince them that there was an inexplicable gust of wind near a school. If not for their ninja training and the fact that they had just used a genjutsu, they might actually let themselves fall for the illusion. Once they released themselves using the ram hand seal, they saw that actually there was another of those bat-like creatures. Now they knew they were called Furies, and they were trying to kill some kid that was being covered by a satyr. Since it was just one Fury, they decided to take care of it from the shadows. Naruto unsealed one shuriken and charged it heavily of wind chakra. He gestured Shikamaru to protect the pair as they moved amidst the crowd, pretending to have fallen under the illusion. Then when the Fury lunged against the satyr and he and the kid closed their eyes thinking they would die, Shikamaru's shadow formed a half-dome shield around them. Naruto's shuriken flew past the Fury's neck and severed it cleanly. Shikamaru's shield retracted to nowhere, and the satyr and kid looked as the Fury's head fell off her body and then exploded in a golden cloud. Naruto decided to leave a clone tailing them for security and to double-check if all of these kids went to the camp. In the present time, Naruto and his team were inside the apartment making preparations for his soon-to-be dive in the earth flow. He had already explained them his issues with the Sage Mode and what he and the Bijus were planning. Shikamaru was somewhat opposed to the idea, but recognized that at the moment they didn't have means for Naruto to learn again to gather nature energy, and even if they did, it was certain how long that would take. Still, he knew that the help of the Bijus would be invaluable. As such, now they were going to meet the famed demons of the elemental nations firsthand. They were going to enter Naruto mindscape. They were all seated on the floor in a meditation pose in circle, grabbing each other's hands. Naruto told them to relax and let his energy flow through them. Then suddenly Shikamaru and Hinata found themselves in a narrow corridor of beautiful gray stone that was weathered and in some places torn off. "Where is Kagaya?" asked Hinata. "I don't know, but she's most likely with Naruto since she's bounded to him," said Shikamaru after thinking for a second. Strangely, the corridor was lit without the need of a light source. In the top part of the walls you could see silvery pipes that ran upwards till you could no longer see them, and some that led further ahead. Deciding to follow the pipes, both of them pressed further in. After a while the corridor started to widen and in the walls appeared pictures of Naruto's important people started to appear, going from Iruka to Ichi and Am to the Konoha 12, which included Sakura, Sasuke, Shikamaru, Hinata and Neji. Hinata cringed a little seeing her and Neji's picture. The last pictures before they arrived to some double doors were of course the Yondaime Hokage's and Uzumaki Kushina's picture alongside Jiraiya and Tsunade's ones. Before they could touch the doors, they opened themselves and revealed a much wider chamber where Naruto was waiting them. Behind him 9 colossal torii gates with numbers from 1 to 9. "Hey guys. Welcome to my mindscape. Meet the family," said excitedly Naruto, and just as he said that 8 colossal creatures materialized themselves from the torii gates. "So this is one of the females that tries to be your mate, eh?" Kid, making Hinata blush intensely. "Why, such a quite little thing. Makes me want to eat her up," purred Matatabi. "I recognize the one with the pineapple head from my time in Gaara," mocked the Santanuki before a torii felled him. "Hello little one," saluted Kakyo. "Well met," followed Isobu. "Well, she certainly has wide hips, optimal for child rearing, but leaving that aside, they are very good companions," said hurriedly Son Goku the last part as he sensed another torii getting close, yet this made Hinata to start to mumble something intelligible. "Well, I certainly already know you from Naruto, but this is our first meeting. I'm the Kyuubi no Kitsune, and these are my brother less one of them, and now we are residents to the soon-to-be second sage of the Six Paths. We have proper names imparted to us by the first sage of the Six Paths, but you are here to see if you are worthy of knowing them, said Kurama, in a tone that meant this wasn't up for debate as Naruto slightly frowned but conceded. Anuo, might I ask something? Kyuubi-sama inquired, Hinata a little hesitant. Oh, now I really want to pounce on her and eat her up, Kumatatabi. You always like to play and tease with words, don't ya, sister, said Chamei, adding oil to the fire. I'd rather you don't, Nibi-sama, scoffed Shikamaru. Shut up you lot, what is on your mind? Hyuga shouted Kurama, cutting them off. Well, since we entered Naruto's mindscape I was wondering where Kagaya was. Oh that huh. Well, Yunara, where do you think she is, care to take a guess? At this Naruto scowled and had a somber look across his face. Shikamaru, catching on, guessed this was something related to the fact that Kagaya was contracted to Naruto in some way or another. He remembered the scene of Kagaya screaming her lungs out during their transfer to this world. Shikamaru sighed, he got the feeling he wasn't going to like what was to come next if Naruto's tale of the Kyuubi's sadistic humor was anything to go by. My guess is that she's either here hidden by you or that she is locked up in a separate space of Naruto's mindscape, seeing that Naruto is capable of inflicting pain on a mere thought. Probably heavily binded in a way that can cause her heavy punishment in case she were to attempt something against Naruto. As such, I highly doubt she would be allowed free roam in Naruto mind despite their connection. Kurama laughter rumbled throughout the chamber and almost made Shikamaru and Hinata fall. Very good boy, it is as you say. Dear Grandma is bounded and secured in a separate space of Naruto mind. In fact, thanks to Amaterasu-sama, in the unlikely case someone were to invade Naruto's mind and we could not stop it, even then, unless they were a primordial class being, they would not be able to even feel Kagaya's soul trapped in Naruto. Her soul? Asked Hinata, bewildered. Oh yes, her soul is bounded to Naruto, but not her mind. As such, she is able to remain in the physical world, supplemented Son Goku. Would you like to see her? Asked Kurama with an obvious sneer. Still the sadistic bastard, commented Naruto, half amused, half annoyed. HMP. Suddenly the landscape shifted quickly, slightly disorienting both Hinata and Shikamaru. The Great Hall and the 9 Great Gates were gone and were replaced by a straight passage of what looked like a sewer system. It was dark and poorly lit, on the walls it could be seen the same pipes that in the past corridors, but more dirty and covered in grime. Unless you use chakra to stand on the water surface it would reach up to knee level. Up front straight ahead, said Kurama. Shikamaru and Hinata squinted, trying to see something ahead of them, and slowly a figure started to get lit up. What came next certainly was a sight to behold and hard to believe. In a tall crimson cross was a much larger version of Kagaya crucified to it. She had been stripped bare of any clothes, leaving her snow-white skin. She was impaled by 5 spear-like grotesque black spikes. 1 in each shoulder, 2 on sides of her hips slightly above the beginning of the legs, and the last one on her forehead right through her middle eye, pinning her firmly against the cross. Copious amounts of blood were seeping from the wound sliding down her body, further contrasting her white skin against the vivid red liquid. From the blood a pentagram circled by strange inscriptions shined from her chest in a sickly crimson that reminded Shikamaru of Naruto's chakra cloak before he tamed the Kyuubi. Above her sword of magical array shone in white and yellow. Shikamaru identified it as the heavenly mandala as it spun slowly. On a closer inspection the spikes had markings that shone in the same light as the mandala ray and seemed to be constantly being discharging a fixed amount of energy to her body. Sickly big veins could be seen from the entry points of the spears, pulsing irregularly and loudly, branching out into the rest of her body. Lastly, 3 different arrays were circling, perpendicular to her. Blood red, snow white and lacquer black. In the middle of each they sported a 3-pronged delta point spear matching its array color. Kagaya's gaze was lost and unfocused, her face was clearly one of discomfort, but she wasn't so much as struggling to any degree. Hinata gasped at the sight of it, and this served to alert Kagaya that she was no longer alone. Her gaze gained focus and tied to look down and noticed the new arrivals. Hello young ones, I guess it's the first time you actually see my true form. Though not so glorious as my last apparition, said Kagaya with a sad smile, struggling to keep her gaze upon Shikamaru and Hinata as the spike on her third eye kept her head pinned against the cross. Is this the seal? Questioned Hinata. No, said Kurama sternly. It's my prison and my penitence. How long will she be bounded like that? Inquired Shikamaru. Who knows, forever, it depends. On what? Asked Shikamaru as he noticed that Kagaya's gaze turned disoriented again. Several conditions must be met, but in the end I'll be a decision between my brothers and Naruto, answered Kurama. Fair enough I guess, said Shikamaru as he figured they couldn't tell him more about these conditions for some or another reason. He could try to get Naruto to tell him at later date, but for now he would trust Naruto, he had a knack for these things. He smiled inwardly and just let it be for now. Hinata. I don't like it. We'll see about that, you're about to face an enemy more deadly than Kagaya Kurama, but said the last bit more seriously. Then the scenery changed again in a blur, and they were in front a small waterfall formed on the ledge of an upper level of the sewers, yet the water was crystal clean. As the waters flowed gently down the ledge small greenery followed it, and as it reached the bottom a pond was formed. The pond's water turned to an aqua green, and as one neared a small land bank near the fall of the water, it turned more and more dark blue. An aura of tranquility engulfed the whole place, and gentle rays of light shine upon the water and the land bank. All in all it looked peaceful with simple kind of beauty. Go to the land bank and meditate, when you are alone you'll know that the test has begun, told them Kurama. To see if you'll tell us your names? Asked Hinata. Exactly, little Hyuga. And for what purpose would knowing your names would serve us if I can ask? You already asked Nara, HMP, but guess that's expected of someone like you. Said Kurama in an arrogant tone but smirked nonetheless. Because names are power, in more ways than you can think. I believe in this world they can tap to one aspect of that, though they barely scratch the surface. Anyway, before we try to restore Naruto's connection to the nature energy we'll have to help him by linking our essences. So we the Biju need to know if you're ready to do that, said Kurama in all business mode. So be it, we'll prove to you all that we're as trustworthy as Naruto must have told you we are, and that we are worthy of being trusted with your important names, said Hinata with flaring determination. Shikamaru looked at her and smirked, she had really toughened up the last couple of months. Kurama smirked even more as he chuckled and waved them to proceed. They walked over the water surface and reached over the land bank and sat in lotus pose. Hinata closed her eyes and heard the water splashing as it fell in Shikamaru's breathing. Then she stopped hearing Shikamaru, she snapped open her eyes and saw herself alone. This is it. Back with the other Biju, Naruto was grumbling and very upset, but he wasn't angry. The other Biju were beside him seeing him brooding over the test. A sort of ping echoed in their heads, signaling them that the waterfall trail had begun. Naruto groaned a bit but stayed in his place. Are you that worried, Naruto-kun asked. Do you feel they are not ready, probed Kakyo. I know they can handle it, but that doesn't mean I'm not worried, the waterfall test it's just the first step after all, said Naruto pinching his nose bridge. He let out a deep sigh as he remembered his own test and that even after it, he had to continue remind himself that the darkness was still part of him. To continue to accept that and to deny it's the same to deny yourself. Just as much as the light is also part of your soul, and neither light nor darkness can exist solely in oneself. They need to be together and clash, merge, split, clash again. Lastly but not least, to realize that dark and light are not the same as good and evil, though he still hadn't completely figured that out. Naruto chuckled a little at the realization that even now he was still learning and figuring out new things. Suddenly Madatabi leapt upon Naruto, but while she was in the air her body flames shimmered and engulfed her figure as it became smaller and smaller. When she landed upon Naruto's back she had a feminine figure and her bosoms leaned against his back as she hugged him from behind, passing her arms by his neck. She closed in and purred in his ear. Easy, Naruto-kun, yes it is hard, but they'll make. Truth be told, this test it's not for us to see if they are worthy, but for they to see that they are worthy. Naruto was quite shocked at first as he turned around and saw the now human form of Madatabi. She looked like a 1.60 meters woman with white skin yet not overly so, and complicated tattoos on all her skin from the arm and legs to her neck. Vibrant blue straight hair that had a few black strands here and there. Her gold and green heterochromic eyes shined brightly as some black strands fell in front of them, and she smiled at him in a somewhat seductive grin, enhanced by two whisker-like stripes in each cheek that ran down to the sides of her neck. She wore a beet violet and blue short sleeveless kimono and just some black spats to cover her legs. On her arms she wore fingerless plated gloves that ran up to below elbow and had heeled shinobi combat boots. Much like Tsunade's. Madatabi purred again, seeing Naruto's surprised face as her two tails swayed softly behind her. Finally Naruto got past his shock and smiled warmly to her. Thanks Madatabi, I'm happy to hear that, still since when you could do this. Yuhu, Naruto-kun, we could always change our form but never had the need or the mood, and seeing that we're no longer chained to our vessel, I decided to play around. That last bit got Naruto attention. You mean you can go outside? We could, but it's not that simple. If we just busted ourselves out you wouldn't fare well. Alas, we now have more freedom, we could manifest some of ourselves, added Son Goku. Not much of a loss if ya ask me, smirked Shukaku. Shut up you damn raccoon, said Chame as he slapped Shukaku. Enough you two, cut in Kakuo as she slapped both of them. Naruto just chuckled at his tenant's antics. We could try some things afterwards. I'm betting you all want to breathe some fresh air. Thanks lad, but don't worry too much about it, like Sis said we have plenty freedom now as we're no longer chained to our host, said Gobi with a reassuring smile. Thanks for the offer though, added Shukaku. What? Shouted Shukaku, indignated by the stares of incredulity coming from his brothers and sisters. Thank you Shukaku, I really mean it. "Whatever you brat," responded Shukaku as he turned around. Matatabi giggled and whispered to Naruto's ear. "Not a very honest fella, think you humans had a term for that, Sundeer Matatabi," Naruto chuckled again. "I believe so," said Naruto, greatly amused. Athena was currently speed skimming through the countless books of her private library, which one could say it could put to shame any other library, ancient or modern, and she took pride in that. A little too much, some would say, as she would often think that no knowledge was out of her reach. Well, that's not to say she wasn't having some setbacks in her search right now. After the council meeting, everyone seemed to forget the appearance of those masked demigods. Well, she assumed they had to be full-grown demigods going by their strength. Like most of the time, her father and brothers quickly got emotional and let their angers and grudges flare open, quickly overlooking the small things. She for her part was intrigued with the warriors. They appeared seemingly out of nowhere and dispatched a small horde of monsters with ease, and very cleanly at that, if she might add. She quickly knew that they had training and skills far beyond that any of the current demigods could hope to achieve. Well, one could argue that it was because they were trained as much as Olympus needed them to be trained, but not her call, and as gods they had to keep the bigger picture in mind. At least she had. Seeing that the council used the meetings as an excuse to vent out their anger and petty squabbles, she at least had to keep things as they should be, as they needed to be. Smiting, championing or siring brain children with the occasional mortal, as the situation called it. Getting back on track with her original task, she was currently focused in the eastern section of her library. As the warriors seemed to have spoken in an amalgam of Japanese, Old Chinese and some Taiwanese from what she recalled. Though their clothes were more Japanese-like, as their weapons like the kunais they used during the fight. Make that the slaughter they made of the monster's horde. However, she wasn't making much progress despite her large collection, because in spite of being clearly of Eastern origin, they hadn't revealed much of themselves. Even after discreetly inspecting the site afterwards, she hadn't had much luck. They mostly dealt with the monsters either with hand-to-hand or with their weapons, which she noticed weren't of celestial bronze, as the blessed aura of Mount Etna was nowhere to be found in the site. However, there was a lingering firm of energy which she hadn't felt before. Most likely it belonged to that last attack that took down the Minotaur. Again, something she hadn't seen before that uneased her. She didn't like vagueness at all. It was a shame she wasn't able to teleport right after the event to watch over the mortals, but it couldn't be helped with the matter of her father breaking the oath again. Luckily for her, Artemis had also took notice of the masked warriors and begun her own search. So she asked her sister to please tell her if she found them. She could only hope they were still alive when she decided to tell her she had found them. She groaned in frustration and decided to rest and have some of her Aunt Hestia cookies that she had stored safely. The damn things were nearly as valued as Itcher in Olympus. Unbeknown to Athena, Apollo had had a hint to find the mysterious ones, and he had the hunch they were deeply involved in his blurred vision of the future. As he traveled in his chariot, conveniently in the form of a Ferrari Murcielago, he noticed that his future oracle had a run-in with them and helped her from some idiotic boys. Sticks for baited, he sounded like his Lilsis, but yes, he was very thankful to them. Oddly enough, just as they left her they went off his radar, they just got obscured from his vision. That gave him a hint. Sure, he just had to look for spot that he couldn't see. A very difficult hint, but a hint nonetheless, he would have to make do. So he grabbed one of her Aunt Hestia's cookies and moaned in pleasure. He had had to smuggle some extra Itcher to Half-Blood Camp, but it was worth the trouble 1,000 times over. Sometime he thought these babies were Olympus' second currency. But in his landscape, Naruto decided to practice his frog katas in the meantime that Shikamaru and Hinata went through their test at the Waterfall of Truth. Even if he still couldn't access his Sage Chakra, it was a good way to keep his skills sharp. While doing his exercises, he also began to wonder in what other ways he could use the help of his Bijuu friends in his techniques. During the battle with Kagaya they had lent him their chakra, and just using their chakra nature, his attacks had become very diverse. He wondered if he could create new techniques using chakra molding and element manipulation. Although he and Sasuke hadn't retained the complete power that the old man gave them, they did retain good measure of it and had integrated in their bodies. He wasn't sure exactly how many abilities had Sasuke, but on his part, he gained affinity for all chakra natures, even the sub-elements. Though he would have to train his ass off with those. It would cool if could manage to pull off the 6-path Sage mode, but it was most unlikely. As he was pondering, this idea struck him when he recalled the Bijuu lending their power. "Hey guys, I want to ask you something." "Ask away boy," said Chame. "Well, during the fight with Obito and Madara you guys lend me your chakras, so I've began to wonder if it was possible you guys to take over the tasks of chakra molding or manipulation when I'm in combat, much like when Kurama gathers nature chakra or like my shadow clones used to take over when creating the Rasengan and Rasen Shuriken." That certainly is an interesting idea," said Isobu. "I agree, and actually we could take further than just taking over the chakra molding by creating localized Bijuu possessions on your body," pondered Son Goku. Just as they were going to go further on the technical stuff, another ping echoed through their heads and knew that the test was done. Right on cue, Kurama appeared with Hinata and Shikamaru. They looked somewhat distraught, but they were smiling widely. Eyes. Shikamaru and Hinata turned to see Naruto giving them his trademark smirk and a thumb up sign. Just as Shikamaru was about to greet him, Hinata shot right past him and went straight to Naruto and stamped a kiss right there to a very stunned Naruto. Hinata just wanted to kiss him after that test. She was more than certain that she needed him and that she had been a fool for wasting so many years just stalking him and watching from afar. She continued to press on her kiss on him. Naruto didn't know what to think and, still confused with surging feelings, he just let go and responded in kind Hinata's kiss. They embraced one another, forgetting all around them as their kiss turned deeper and more passionate as it went by. Both of them started coiling their tongues against one another. Suddenly they broke the kiss and looked at each other. Hinata looked at Naruto and her eyes teared up and started sobbing. "Naruto, forgive me. But I've been a fool. I love you. I love you. I love you. I love you. Since we were kids, but I was scared. Even just before the waterfall test I was still scared. Scared of getting rejected, scared of not being good enough, scared of being scared. Lying to myself that just being near you was enough, but it isn't," began saying Hinata between sobs and tears. Whether they were of happiness or sadness was hard to tell, but Naruto knew they were completely heartfelt. Hinata was just about to sob again when Naruto pulled her in and hugged her. "I love you too," he whispered to her ear very softly, "but I also was afraid. Afraid of admitting my feelings, that your feelings would have cooled down, that you wouldn't want to love after the war, but most of all afraid that my feelings weren't strong enough," and he kissed her again, but this time more gently and delicately. "I love you, shy and silly girl. I love you, dense oaf. About time you mismatched match. I was getting annoyed with you too," bellowed Kurama as all the Biju snickered or grinned. "Oh shut you orange furball, get on with the freaking presentation," shouted Naruto, but was smiling from ear to ear. Yeah, but you're not getting off the hook, you hear me kid? Looking forward to this you brat," snickered Shukaku. "So troublesome," muttered Shikamaru with a smile. "You have proven yourselves against your own fears, grudges and resentment. Admitted them and vowed to not let them control you," said Son Goku. "That is a big step in the road to enlightenment and a requisite to be able to convene with us tailed beasts, so congratulations you two," added Chaume excitedly. "However, it's not over with just that, you brats," intersected Shukaku. "This is only the first step. As your road continues you'll have to continue having your own waterfall tests within you," responded Kakyo. "You'll have to ponder on this and live day by day, but for now this test assures you and us that we can confide you with our respected names," added solemnly Kurama. "I'm the great San Tanuki Shukaku, you brats, so better remember it. My name is Matatabi," she said as she changed back to her real form. "I'm Isobu," he said, gazing at them with his lone eye. "I'm the great Monkey King, Son Goku," bellowed Son. "You can call me Kakyo, young one," she said in what could be a tender smile. "I'm Seiken. You look like a fruit. I would love some fruit right now. Call me the Lucky Seven, Chaume, let's get along. The Eight Tails, our last brother, is currently still inside B and it's a pain to introduce him. I'm Kurama and you better care with our names, you kits." "Geez Kurama, you're so melodramatic," teased Naruto with a grin. "Thank you very much Kurama-sama and all you," said Hinata while bowing as she finally was getting over a massive blush. But she was extremely happy as she had finally taken that last step and confessed. She couldn't wait to tell the news to Hanabi, but alas it certainly would have to wait. Shikamaru on his end was just amused and very happy that those two had finally come forward. When they returned to Konoha it was going to be a complete mayhem as soon the news gets spread. He had some worries concerning Naruto's impending possible enactment of the Craw, but decided to leave those grey thoughts for when the time comes. HMP, at least someone is respectful. "Come on, get out of here, we'll try to fix Naruto's problem later." "You need to rest, young one," said Kakyo, and just as that the 8 Bijuas faded from existence and they were back at the apartment, but it was nighttime already. They got up from their meditation positions and stretched their stiff muscle as they had been in one position for what felt like various hours. Naruto smiled as he looked to Hinata and went over to her and whispered to her ear, "I love you," very tenderly. Hinata felt shivers ran up her spine and turned to kiss Naruto. As they broke off the kiss, Naruto glanced to the wall clock and saw that it wasn't all that late. "Up to go for some dinner, Hina-heim." "Gladly," nearly shouted Hinata as she rushed off to her room. "Aren't you the suave guy?" teased Shikamaru, and Naruto just chuckled. "Have fun with her, just remember clan heads tend to not be fond of surprises regarding their heirs." Naruto gulped at this as he imagined the whole Hyuga household raining down on him. "Either way, be careful out there, the clones have seen a few kindly ones lately. I know, they're starting to increase in number. So far I'd say that we managed to settle enough in this world to pass off as normal people. I'd say it's time to start digging deeper in the world of these gods. The myths and the books have dissimilitudes to what we have seen so far. I think we might have to go to that camp to search for more accurate info. What differences? Asked Naruto somewhat concerned. We can discuss it at a later time, but for instance, we clearly don't have weapons of godly origin or forged from blessed materials, yet we can finish off the monster just fine. Think chakra has anything to do? Might be, but we can't be sure if it's because the chakra conductive steel, chakra itself, or maybe both, answered as he raised an eyebrow. Be as it may, it's about time we claim ourselves as the Ananke brothers now. Naruto raised an eyebrow. Dude, that leaves me and Hinata in a bad position. Not much I can do, Naruto. So troublesome. Shikamaru smacked Naruto in the back of the head and told him to go get ready. For the next 3 days Naruto and Hinata spend their free time together as much as they could. They went to dinner, had a few outings and make out, but keep things simple as they were still on mission and there was much to do. So with much difficulty they both agreed to wait a little more. On the 4th they set out to the half-blood camp, leaving a few clones to manage their normal personas and maintain the apartment in order. Jiraiya had received a request from an editorial in New York to move there and sign a contract with them for his Icha Icha series, as they somehow had the inkling that he had more works of the Icha Icha series than those that he had released. The CEO had asked him very intently to consider the offer and he was open to negotiate the contract terms. He called himself Taiyo Manita but was anything but Asian, as Shikamaru had discovered on this Google thing. Anyway, they were considering taking the deal as the pay was more handsome and it was somewhat closer to the camp. That would make their mission a tad easier, yet the feeling of it being too good to be true was shared among them. After they had got over the earth dive and the claiming that was the next point in their agenda. Right now they were in the middle of the forest early morning and had just finished setting up a small camp in order for Naruto to make his dive in the earth flow. Hinata and Shikamaru felt uneasy because their sole role was to serve as anchors of sorts for Naruto and the Bijuu to find their way back. As such, they only needed to be marked with Naruto and the Bijuu's chakra with a seal and perhaps pray for their safety. Naruto entered the small tent they set up and after a manly hug, lol, with Shikamaru and a reassuring kiss to Hinata, he started to meditate and entered his mindscape. So you ready, kid? Sure am. Let's proceed with caution then, said Isobu. The 8 gathered around Naruto and put their hands together one on top the other and Naruto fist bumped them like the time they shared their names with him. Then they entered the flow of the earth and all them flinched as they were washed over an overwhelming amount of energy. Strangely enough, this energy was soothing and relaxing, urging them to relax and simply let go. Shikamaru and Hinata set up some traps and detection seals to create a security perimeter. According to Kagaya, they would have to concentrate the barrier seals with Naruto because if they were to spread apart the nature energy gathering would leak out. As such they would have to rely on wire traps and sensor seals. Right now Kagaya was beside Naruto's tent as last guard. According to Naruto, he had realized enough power to make her a high Chunin or maybe low Jounin. Jutsu, power and speed wise, but with her all-killing ash bones, she was about Takebetsu Jounin level, yet Shikamaru, though she would be more mid-Jounin, since she had little battle experience despite her powerful jutsus. Thus they labeled her at a B+2A nin level. Chloe was leading a small group of hunters that consisted of mostly new hunter sisters and a few veterans to show them the ropes. They numbered 20 in total. They have been chasing a pack of manticores that strayed too deep into the forest. The hunt could have ended more swiftly without the need to chase so much the beats, but the whole purpose of this was to let the fledglings to have their first kills. The one her group was chasing was currently trying to elude the barrage of arrows and take cover in a grotto that Chloe knew was just ahead. If it got there then her newest sister would lose her kill. Then suddenly something very odd happened. The manticore slowed its pace and started to look confused and it simply walked back to them absent-mindedly. Her sister didn't miss the chance and shot it down. Even she knew something wasn't right. Sister, that was very odd. Agreed, Min's sister, responded Chloe, while eyeing the area where the beast suddenly started to act strangely. She closed in very slowly and began to feel as she had forgotten why she was going forward. She was about to turn back when her hunter sister Mary called for her. That snapped her of the daze and realized there was an external force subtly making her sleepy and compelling her that she had nothing to do there. She first thought of the mist but realized that there wasn't any yet. Whatever it was, it worked the same way. So she pressed forward and told Mary to call the others and to tell them the strange hexany in place. Then she marked her path with her silver arrows as she advanced. Suddenly the force resided and stopped trying to make her leave. She decided to wait for her hunters, which they didn't take too long. Apparently all hunts had gone without a hitch. Sister Chloe, what exactly was that? I'm not sure, but there seems to be a guarded area tied that direction, said Chloe, pointing deeper to the forest. Seems someone doesn't want us coming near them, said one of the veteran hunters. Matters not. These are our mistress' hunting grounds. Press onward and be wary of traps and hexes. All the hunters complied and silently moved forward as they started to spread to cover ground. As Chloe walked through the trees, she spotted a tripwire hidden very skillfully on the floor between some bushes and roots. She began to follow the wire along its path. But saw that one of her hunters was about to step on it. Halt. She tried to warn her, but was too late as the hunter set off the trap. And a whoosh and a dry thump were heard as two diamond-shaped knives buried themselves in said hunter's leg, and third one missed and flew past her. Chloe was just about to help her when she had to dodge an iron pole that swung down and hit her sister, sending her crashing as she shrieked from pain. As she gathered herself, she moved very carefully towards her and noticed that she had fell upon some sort paper with ink symbols. Suddenly the paper lighted up and on pure instinct, she carried her sister and jumped to the upper branches as the paper exploded with force unbefitting to its size. The force of the explosion hit them hard, but they were safe. Or so she thought as she realized that the upper branches were also tripped wired. Here and there she more paper tags like the former one. She laid her sister against the trunk and made sure she wasn't gravely injured. She was heavily wounded and in pain, but not in mortal danger. Chloe started to call her hunters with a bird call to warn them, but more explosions started to go off and flashes of light were seen in the distance, and those black knives made noises as they cut through the air. She started to feel enraged to whoever was responsible for this, and dread for her sisters stung her chest because she knew that only the veterans would be able to escape these traps. She started to command all the veterans to gather with her and that the fledglings to fall back. She took out the knives of her sister's leg and bandaged her. As she waited for her sisters to gather, she examined the strange weapon. It was an elongated diamond blade with a bandaged handle and a ring on its butt. Simple yet very efficient. She gripped and immediately noticed the perfected balance in the weapon. It was made so it would always go blade first when thrown, but with enough weight on the ring so it would not feel overly heavy when wielding it. She had a small shudder. This was a blade to kill, simple as that, a blade designed to be wielded lightly and efficiently, end a life with the least effort needed. While she was no stranger to ending a life, it was the cold calculated precision of the weapon and those that must wield that made her somewhat worried. She could tell that whoever designed this found no glory, honor or courage in a fight. For them to kill was simply a mean to an end, had to be done quickly and swiftly, no emotions involved. Unlike most of the hunters, as they always ended killing a mortal. Mostly men, out of rage or some other dissatisfaction. "Lady Chloe, are you alright?" said one hunter as they arrived. "Yes, just a few scratches and light burning," responded Chloe as she scanned the group of 7 veterans. They were mostly unharmed save a few bruises on some of them. "We are getting to the bottoms of this. We shan't leave the honor of our mistress Artemis tarnished as her hunters. Now let us proceed very carefully," she said softly, but Jane, Merida, Jessie, Miranda, Rain, Letta and Hippolyta responded with nods and a fierce determination on their eyes. They advanced slowly, avoiding the traps and paper tags. As they waded through, Chloe started to notice that some tags had a different pattern than the others. That gave her a very bad feeling but still pressed forward. Suddenly they heard a rustle to their left and one of them fired a silver arrow. "Duck low!" shouted Chloe as a barrage of black knives came from the right. They all avoided the attack, but a black-garbed warrior appeared from the left and sneaked between 4 of them. They all gasped and the warrior stroked the Merida in the shoulder with 2 fingers, her shoulder dislocated. He went to ground level and knocked Hippolyta and Jane with a kick to their feet, twisted himself and from the floor kicked Hippolyta upwards. She was hurled upward unbelievably high, then hand-palmed Jane on the stomach so hard she puked and passed out. Lastly, as Letta was firing her arrow, the warrior ducked with minimum effort and struck the air with 2 fingers like before, but somehow Letta was still struck and received in a flash at least a dozen hits. She went on her knees. "My arms, I can't feel them and my legs are going numb," said in disbelief. Then as Hippolyta was falling, the warrior casually grabbed her by the neck. Everyone stood still, frozen in shock. 5 seconds, 5 measly seconds, this warrior had defeated half of them with apparent ease and had won her sisters as a hostage. Now that he stood still, they could see the white bone mask with markings resembling a swallow. He wore a braid shortened into a bun. He maybe was a she, which made Chloe in the deep recesses of her mind less ashamed. Her dark garb consisted on some strange cargo pants with holsters to those knives in many pockets. A vest of a lighter shade resembling the mortal's bulletproof vests and a strange fusion of combat boots and sandals. "Let her go," shouted Merida. "Steady," shouted Chloe as the remaining hunter had already drawn their bows and she didn't want to risk a loose shot. "Who are you?" "No, you're trespassing Lady Artemis' domains. If thou don't identify yourself you shall feel Our Lady's wrath." The possible she-warrior remained impassive as Hippolyta was still gasping for air and trying in vain to get free. "I didn't know I was trespassing. If you go back your way I shall depart in a few hours," said in a weird voice that couldn't be identified as male or female. "Nonsense, are you a fool? Have you no shame? Your transgression is already grave. You should thankful we are offering you a chance to not face our mistress' wrath," shouted Rain. "This is going nowhere," he or she said as Hippolyta was thrown to rain, and just as everyone was going to release their arrows, they felt a pang of pain in the back of the neck and quickly passed out. Just as Chloe was losing consciousness, she saw a second figure land with the same garb but an owl mask. Then she faded to darkness. Somewhere outside the trap area, the younger hunters were bandaging themselves and getting ready to head back camp to let their lady know of the possible intruders. Well, all of them were badly hurt, either by a knife or burns from some explosion, but the most grave wounds were broken bones, a knife too deep to be pulled out, or a third-degree burn. Then suddenly the wind picked up and lots leaves swirled around, making them to cover their eyes. Just as suddenly the leaves cleared and revealed their seniors unconscious on the ground, all of them sported a small red dot on the back of their necks. When Naruto and the Biju entered the earth flow, they were almost overwhelmed by the massive wave of yin energy that almost made them forget themselves altogether. It was a soothing sensation that spread all over their minds. It wasn't forceful, but the sheer amount of energy was almost suffocating. Slowly but surely they waded deeper and deeper into the earth flow and started to feel a change in the energy. Before it was encompassing and tranquil, almost like a loving embrace, but slowly it began to turn more active and radiated more intensely. Naruto began to feel a sort of conscience buried in the flow. The voices of the Biju were almost muted and were distant, yet Naruto felt their intentions. They told him to leave the conscious alone and keep searching for the yang core. But he was unable to do so. Naruto felt grief, sadness, rage and hate pulsing from it. He tried to call upon it, but it was slumbering too deeply. As he came closer and realized that the entity was burying itself in the yang core, so he took a decision that only a hopeful fool would take. He touched the core and tried to take in at least some of the suffering it was feeling. As soon as he did so, he was assaulted with the full brunt of all the grief and sorrow of ages past, going back for millennia. Images of betrayal and war and a family torn apart over and over again flashed upon him, and the Biju and unimaginable pain was forced into them. Naruto did the only thing he could think of and started to take in all that pain along the yang energy and started to filter it. Naruto felt sorry for whoever had to suffer this, and if he could he would have wept. Nobody deserved the kind of pain this being was suffering. While he didn't get clear images, he understood. It was betrayed by the ones it loved the most, and its family had torn themselves apart over greed and power, casting it aside and scorned. Slowly and with the help of all of them, he was able to withstand the wave and absorb the yang energy at a constant influx. Doing so, the energy started to attune itself with Naruto's being, finally granting him access to the Sage mode. Just as he entered Sage mode, he was able to take in almost all of the sorrow and disperse it in the yin flow. While this was less effective than he filtering it, it served as way to lessen the pain as Naruto was nearing his limits and could not withstand anymore without losing his sanity. As he started but pulled back and the Biju were berating him for his usual recklessness, he noticed something. Now that the entity was less grief-full, he sensed some sort of wickedness near it. It felt wrong, completely wrong, as the hate and malice radiating from it didn't have a reason to be. It simply wanted to hate and spread it. His companions sensed it too and told him to destroy it with their chakras. Naruto extended his conscience and blasted the thing with chakra. It took some heavy effort, but flaring all of their chakra combined, it vanished. As he receded, he failed to notice that the consciousness was now somewhat aware of him. When he finally awakened, he was already in Sage mode. As he exited the tent, he was greeted by Shikamaru and Hinata with very relieved faces. He noticed it was nighttime already. "Congratulations, Naruto-sama," said Kagaya in a polite tone, but smiling nonetheless. "I'm so happy, Naruto," shouted Hinata. "You got us worried for a while. You started sweating heavily and coughed blood. Sorry to worry you, but it was a success. I'll tell you what happened after some rest. I believe I found a clue for our mission." Shikamaru raised an eyebrow. "Bad good news indeed, but we have another pressing matter. A goddess might grace us with her presence," he said in a sarcastic but bored tone. "Tell me what happened." Tyron woke up as soon as he felt it, doubting himself for a moment, for it had been millennia since that particular domain was used. Then he felt a second pull on nature power. This he did recognize. Lady Artemis was using her secondary domain of nature. Then he was reeling in disbelief as nature power simply flared. This wasn't nature power being commanded. Oh no, this was something that only Pan could do, and even then he rarely did so. Nature power was acting by itself. It was rising and attacking by the feel of it, on its own will. He quickly armed himself and went outside. When got the main yard, he noticed that Lord Dionysus had felt it too. He simply grunted and hinted him to follow in a very uncharacteristic seriousness. Chiron figured he also recognized Pan's domain. "Lord Dionysus, are my senses playing me for a fool, or this energy is what I think it is?" "No, Chiron, they aren't. This certainly feels like Pan's domain acting on its own and seemingly fighting Artemis," said the god of wine in all seriousness. Chiron had hoped for centuries that Lord Dionysus acted serious for once, and now that he did, by order, it was scary as the hell, as the mortals tend to say. And by looks of it, they're pretty even. "Oh my, the hunters are joining the fray," said Dionysus, somewhat amused. Just what in the world would push Artemis to fight with her hunters? As they pondered, they neared the edge of the barrier and suddenly the forest erupted in a battle cry. It sounded still quite off but very loud nonetheless, but the voices of Artemis hunters were cut as heavy smacks were heard. One after the other they were heard, drowning the battle cries, and began to grow in strength. Suddenly a flash of light and the roar of fire was heard. More cries were heard, but these ones were from pain. More smacks, another flash followed by a great whoosh as it traveled some distance, yet more cries of pain. Then the sound of something crashing on the earth, faint blue light erupted with a shriek and thump heard after. Then the nature force built up so greatly Chiron was hard pressed to not pass out, much to his chagrin. Then an incredibly bright orange light that near blinded them and covered all the camp with its glow. At this point a lot of the campers were awake and heading to the border, since the sounds of the battle were just that loud in spite of clearly being that far. Then just as that silence, so heavy Chiron was starting to dread of what he didn't know, but he preferred the sounds of a raging battle to the silence, without knowing just what was happening. This silence stretched to 20 minutes, then to 40. Chiron began to wonder why Lord Dionysus hadn't gone to investigate. Seemingly having read his mind, said God answered. "Unless I have a very clear motive, I can't really interfere with Artemis' business, and I can't sense she is hurt in any way." Thought it's very eerie, the silence, he said in a detached voice, returning to his usual persona. "Anyway, I'm gonna go back to bed, put patrols up the border." "Of course, Lord Dionysus," replied Chiron and shouted some directions. "I'm sure you all are confused, but we don't have time to wonder. Those of you on patrol duty guard the perimeters. Someone go to Hare's cabin and tell them that I need them here as backup. That is not up to debate. Spread the word. I want all the house heads in the main cabin in 1 hour," shouted Chiron in a tone that meant no bullshit. The campers were thrown off as the always academic figure seemed to vanish for a moment. Hopefully the Hare's cabin would heed their brother's advice to not fuck with Chiron right now. The aforementioned currently was still near the border of the camp, waiting for the patrols and the Hare's cabin to arrive. His mind going 1000 per minute, thinking of what to do, but he simply had no info to go by. He would never let it show, but he hated to just wait and see how it would turn about. He fucking hated it. Despite not having evidence, he couldn't shake them feeling that this was somehow connected to the strangers from some months ago. He had received reports about demigods getting safely to the camp as monsters suddenly banished, died, or simply paths where one would expect kindly ones were clean of them. The reports were far and between, but they were there nonetheless, and in one such one the caretaker had retrieved one of the strangers' weird weapons embedded in a wall after a Fury had been beheaded. The weapon in question was amazing, in the words of a Hephaestus cabin member. According to him, the weapon resembled that of the Japan's ninjas but was clearly a set apart. The lightness of the metal belied its strength as it proved to withstand a full swing of sword and remain unscathed. It was extremely well balanced and seemed to have been made with the idea to be able to switch from offense to defense on moment's notice. The metal seemed to be able to conduct energy extremely well, as not even the cabin forges were able to so much make it go red hot, and its template wasn't affected. After Chiron tried it out, he immediately noticed this was a weapon to kill, no bullshit. An hour had nearly passed, and he decided to head to the main hall, receive reports from the cabin heads, when a round of explosion resounded from the forest. Said explosions kept growing stronger and getting nearer to the camp. Chiron started to cold sweat when the light of them was visible and kept getting closer. A camper was starting to freak out, and some of them dropped their weapons and started to run. "Keep your positions. If you run now, what's to keep those of your brothers and sisters safe?" shouted Chiron with the authority of centuries behind him. Just as he said this, 4 figures were seen jumping from 3 to 3. One of them, while in mid-air, turned around and spewed from his mouth large amounts of what looked like black smoke, which quickly spread and served as a smoke screen. Then another landed near Chiron and revealed to be a black-haired girl with teal eyes, much to Chiron's surprise. She made some sort of quick figures with her hands and slammed them onto the floor. Suddenly a wall of earth surged behind the others as they also landed. The one that had spewed the smoke made another single figured, and the smoke burst into a massive explosion that engulfed a good portion of the 3s in the area. Ooh. The explosion resounded and the fire howled behind them. As the figures finally uprighted themselves, allowing a clear view. One of them, a blonde with spiky hair young man with sapphire blue eyes wearing a dark orange cloak with blood red flames in the bottom and some kanji in the back. A black shirt underneath a military vest, military dark brown pants with quite some pockets and some pouch-like things on his hips, black combat boots. Fingerless padded gloves, and finally a huge sword strapped on his back easily of his own height. The girl with the teal eyes wore a teal turtleneck sweater. Also some black military cargo pants, though more fitted to her figure, military gray boots and the same pouch-like bags, also fingerless gloves and some cylinder containers strapped to her lower back. The second man also wore a military vest on top of a short-sleeved green shirt. A dark brown trench coat, again some cargo pants only in camouflage green, though his distinctive was his gravity-defying ponytail. Lastly, the second woman was a stunning beauty that in Chiron's opinion rivaled or surpassed Aphrodite. She had snow-pale skin and black-blue hair flowing to her feet and wore a simple yet elegant kimono with blue and red hues on the sleeves, bottom and neck. She had very light teal eyes that almost loosed themselves in the white of the eyes. "Am half-blood I hope," said the blonde in kind voice as the other tree gathered behind him. "Yes dear child, who might you be?" asked Chiron still wary. "I'm Naruto, they are my teammates Hinata, Shikamaru and last, but not least Kagaya," said still with his smile and a light chuckle, seeing Chiron's wariness. "Seems like he's level-headed." All four thought along those lines. "Forgive my rudeness my child, I have to ask seeing your grand entrance, but who are you and why are you here and from what were you running?" "I understand your concerns, we are part of a Yokai Hunters clan here in America, you'd call them simply monsters. Alas, my clan was almost exterminated a few months back in a Yokai invasion to our compound, we escaped with our lives. A few months back we finally managed to contact some upper clansmen and informed us of the sanctuary. So when we were found and attacked we headed here as fast as we could, but we were separated from our kin," said the blonde with some bitterness. "I'm sorry to hear that, but I believe you weren't fighting monsters just before you got here." "Oh yeah, in the last trek some group of women ambushed the Yokai, but took to attack us when one of them let loose an arrow, and we blocked it." Chiron wanted face vault at that, so very like the hunt to do. "Well, I'm sure you're all tired, so perhaps we should head back to the main hall so we can address some things and inform you more about the camp." The blonde and the black-haired one with the ponytail slightly arched their eyebrows. "Thank you, what's your name?" "Oh, forgive me, I'm Chiron, the trainer of heroes." "The Chiron?" asked Shikamaru. Chiron just chuckled at the very old jab. "Yes my child, glad you're well informed of the past of the Western culture." "We had a crash course," said Shikamaru dismissively. They continued their way to the main hall and on their way as it was to be expected with sudden and dramatic arrival, they garnered quite crowd following the entourage. The four noticed some of the looks the campers were giving them. The boys, especially some of the beefier ones, were eyeing both Hinata and Kagaya like they were pieces of meat, which garnered them dose of killing intent from Naruto as a low growl, which obviously scared the shit out of them. The female population did the same to Naruto and Shikamaru. However, Hinata's reaction was more subdued as she filed some of the faces she thought would be trouble. Oddly enough, most of them were a group of blondes, both male and female to boot. "I must say it's much of a surprise to receive demigods this old alive, please tell me how you've managed all this time, you did mention a clan?" asked Chiron amicably. "Yes sort of, our clan was dedicated to the extermination of the Yokai, the creatures here in the West you simply call monsters. As such since early age we've been trained in combat and survival," said Naruto, mixing some truths about their early years after the clan fall. "Some groups decided to move to America, it was until then that the younger generation, us, were informed of the demigod status we all had and origins the monsters we hunted," finished Shikamaru with a neutral voice. "Again sorry for your losses, but I must ask, do you have any idea of who are your godly parents?" "It's okay Chiron-sensei," said Naruto sheepishly. "The death of comrade, it's never easy, but it's part of our business and way of life, we are no strangers to it and know perfectly that this day could be our last day. We've come to term with this a long time ago, don't worry about that," Chiron-sensei supplemented Hinata with a kind smile. Chiron was both amazed and saddened that such young people barely 20 were already acquaintance with such reality from early ages. The campers that were within earshot were also surprised by the way they so nonchalantly dismissed the fact of dying in battle. After a few moments they reached the main cabin and Chiron told them to stand in the stage. At this moment Dionysus reappeared and started grumbling about annoying brats and not waiting till morning. Children. Let me introduce to you our camp director Lord Dionysus, who the campers often refer as Mr. D for short. It is a great pleasure to meet you Dionysus-sama, thank you for allowing our stay, said Naruto with a small reverence. Followed by the other tree, but nonetheless with great politeness and a respectful tone. Dionysus used to badly veiled contempt, false reverence and downsizing, this was actually refreshing. Sure, they weren't kneeling or groveling, but they actually greeted and bowed to him truthfully, not a hint of falseness. Thank you very much, Dionysus-sama, said Hinata in a small bow with a comely smile. We're very grateful, followed Shikamaru with neutral voice, yet polite. Kagaya also bowed slightly with her hand on the front, her grace and fine movements reminded Chiron and Dionysus of the tales of the geishas of Japan that Apollo was so inflated about. Dionysus felt for her some sort of kinship, perhaps. He wasn't entirely sure, but dismissed the feeling as soon as he got it. He smiled them back and amused at the four in there, dare he say it, warm greeting, he just waved them off and told them to don't mind it, leaving a surprised Chiron with eyes like platters. Seeing his face, Dionysus enjoyed the moment and smirked. Alright you brat, sit down so I can go back to sleep and you keep up all night in the borders. yelled Dionysus as some of the campers grumbled about unfairness and others just had sullen looks of acceptance. We have been blessed with the arrival of 4 new brothers and sister. From who really is anyone's guess, like always the betting tables opens tomorrow and I don't know what the heck they want here, as they obviously have 2 more drachmas worth than you lot, seeing they are the oldest demigod to date surviving outside the camp. At this the campers started realizing this fact. Already ignoring Mr. T's usual rants. The 4 were clearly much older than the average demigod when they first arrived to the camp. Anyway, welcome Naruto, Hinata, Kagaya and Shikamaru, repeated the wine god as Chiron told him their names. Much to every camper's surprise, he wasn't corrected by the centaur like he usually did when introducing new campers. Please take care of us, Ed, they all said, less Kagaya, who simply nodded. That took the cabin heads out of their stupor and started with the usual proceedings. And gave them a quick introductions of the cabins and the dining tables, also instructed them to the Hermes cabin where they would reside till they were claimed by the godly parents. Upon seeing the overtaxed cabin, they simply said they would camp outside the cabin as they have been doing so before arriving. At first the kids eyed them like they were crazy, but later with a lot of interest and some with envy as they saw that they wouldn't be all cramped up in their camp. In some 20-odd minutes they had set up a hexagon-shaped tent that could easily house 15 people all huddled together, and the question in everyone's mind was, where in the Olympian's sake had they kept that? Naruto, seeing their incredulity stares, just smirked inwardly to the blessing of storage seals and scrolls. Alright, all in all it was a good day, but too tiring. We have some hours before sunrise, let's rest, and tomorrow we'll pitch together what we have till now, said Naruto while yawning. Agree, too much trouble for one day, seconded Shikamaru, muttering about troublesome she-wolves and such. Yes, I need some rest badly, said Hinata as she went to her side of the 4-divided tent. She started disrobing when she noticed that Kagaya was on Naruto's side, apparently helping him. Just as she finished, she was going to give Kagaya a piece of her mind when Kagaya entered her side and offered her help. Wah? Was all she could dumbly say. As I said, may I offer help to disrobe yourself and help prepare you for a good night's sleep? Said so matter-of-factly. Why would you do that, Kagaya-san? Mean, I guess I can understand you serving Naruto, if not to my liking. Neither his Hinata sighed in relief, but I wish to serve Naruto-sama in that way. But why me also? Wait, is this the first time? Because you're our master Naruto lover, as such stands to reason that I also serve you alongside him, and I have tried to service Naruto-sama times past, but alas, he was busy with mission business, or we were mid-operative. Hinata just stared at her. You're driving crazy, aren't you? I believe it would be an appropriate term, said Kagaya with an ever-so-light smirk. Hinata holded a laugh. Help, get ready, but as a request from your comrade, not an order or the like. If you can't see it in that light, then don't do anything, as it would only be an affront to both of us, said Hinata in a half-serious tone. Kagaya seemed to ponder a bit. That is acceptable, Hinata-san. Hinata was silently thanking for the dampening sound seals in the division clothes and the silencing ones outside the tent. Few hours later, still dark, high-pitched cries were heard from the Furies. At first everyone thought that some poor sap from the Apollo or Hermes cabin had tried to sneak and try some prank or skip morning run. They changed their minds when they realized the screams were more of the induced pain nature rather than the inducing pain one. Too groggy or too scared, no one ventured to find out. As they finished their morning activities, all cabins headed out for breakfast and noticed 2 things. 1. 5 Furies were beaten, gagged and tied up, hanging in somewhat S&M reminiscent positions from the main arch of the main cabin inn, with tags that said pervert, rude so, bat bitch, lowly peasant and troublesome. 2nd, that Naruto, Hinata, Shikamaru and Kagaya were break-facing serenely with fresh clothes. Some of the campers saw a rope at their feet below the table. Tyron just stared and couldn't stop staring. Dionysus just stopped, read the tags, eyed the positions, then turned his head to the 4 in the table and saw the rope. Well, the aforementioned just courtly nodded as greeting when their gazes met, and he lost it, cracking up in laughter as he went for his food. By the time most of the campers were arriving, the 40th had already finished their breakfast. As they were leaving the mess hall, Chiron approached them. Most curious incident, wouldn't you say? Quite so, Chiron-sensei, didn't expect the Furies to be so open in their preferences, said Hinata innocently. I assure this is new for all of us. On a side note, would you know if this was before or after the Furies made their wake-up rounds? Wouldn't know, no one told us or came to wake us at dawn for early morning activities, responded Naruto. So troublesome workers skipping workout for their own pleasures, added Shikamaru, arching an eyebrow in semi-sarcastic voice. At this moment the Furies whimpered as the 40th passed them. Oh yes, anyone near could have suspicions, but Chiron was now certain, and for the first time in a very long time he decided he didn't want to know. He ushered them to the training fields and called for Anabeth and Grover to give them the introduction tour. Hi, so you're the new kids or new guys? Sorry, hope you realize how unusual it is for demigods to survive as long as you 4, said Grover. It's okay, everyone says the same, chuckled Hinata as they weaved their way through various groups of teen running around. Well, I'll go from top to bottom, said Grover. First we have the main hearth managed by Lady Hestia up there in center of the cabins. There we make our offerings to the gods and pray to them. You already know the main cabin where the mess hall is. Every morning we have breakfast there after morning exercises and we all in the tables, according to your godly parents. Since you remain unclaimed you'll keep staying in the Hermes cabin, he said, eyeing their tent. Curiously, some campers were trying to enter it and were unable to even open the entrance zipper air sort of. Next are the cabins that surround the main hearth, starting with the biggest there, id cabin 1 belonging to Zeus. Oh, I have a feeling this one could give Madara a run for his money with this kind of ego, said Naruto offhandedly. The rest just chuckled and Kagaya smirked slightly. Grover and Anabeth, not having understood the jab, decide to not press further. From there they go in ascending numbers belonging to Hera, Poseidon, Demeter, Ares, Athena, Apollo, Artemis, Hephaestus, Aphrodite, Hermes, Dionysus, Hades. Those are the Olympian cabins. The other belong to some minor gods and goddesses: Iris, Hypnos, Nemesis, Nike, Hebe, Tich and Hecate. So stiff, muttered in neutral tone Shikamaru. From there Grover took to see where were the other buildings in the camp, such the amphitheater, the woods where the capture the flag games were played, the shooting field, the lake and the arena. As they were coursing they slowly, a crow began to gather. When they arrived to the arena, a shout was heard. So you're the newbies that everyone's talking about, said some teen looking roughly 18 or less. They don't look like much, said a girl beside him about same age. Well, guess we'll have to show them the other tour, right? Said a third boy with 2 females following in tow, and they all laughed haughtily and leered at Hinata and Kagaya, but Naruto's group barely registered them and walked past them. Grover and Anabeth were getting worried. This were the most aggressive members of Cabin 5. Hey, don't you fucking dare to ignore me, shouted the first boy and tried to grab Naruto from the cloak. What's with the clothes, clowns? But before he even got close to grabbing Naruto, he jumped over the brute's head with a flip and landed to his back. The boy shouted and made to punch him, but this time he was grabbed by the wrist by Hinata. Before he made another move, she twisted his wrist and juked his arms, rendering them useless. Hey, what you waiting for, get him. They can't help you, said Shikamaru in a bored tone. Then the boy, Grover and Anabeth saw that his cronies were all in the floor unconscious. Their eyes went wide like platters. They had neutralized 5 Cabin 5 members without breaking a sweat. Pathetic, said dryly Kagaya as the last guy fell from a backhand on the neck. This is a sage cloak and was given to me by a very precious person to me who died defending the path of peace. Try something again and not having functional arms will be last of your problems, said coldly Naruto as he traced a blood trail on the boy's neck from side to side with a kunai that only his group knew he had. The blockage will wear off in 5 hours, said Hinata with an all too sweet smile. Grover's brain finally rebooted again. What do you mean, a sage cloak? There hasn't been a sage since the first 200 years since Lord Pan faded, shouted Grover, very scandalized. I mean just that, I'm a sage, I can draw the energy of nature to myself. Prove it. Shot back Grover, very angry. Naruto sighed and agreed and sighed down on the dirt of the arena. He began to gather nature energy and noticed that it flowed all too fast into him. As if waiting to enter him on command. Also it seemed to circulate at a faster rate within him, both in and out. He figured that with this faster flow, he would be able to hold the sage mode more time and maybe with practice draw on energy without to do full meditation, though it would certainly be less. The amount gathered, a quick burst of sage energy would be immensely useful during a fight or to get out of a sticky situation. He started to absent-mindedly play with flow. Oblivious to him, Grover, nymphs, nereids and all the nature spirits in the camp were in a daze as the nature energy wave washed over them. A few birds landed on his shoulder and more forest critters approached him with all kind of wood spirits. They watched in awe as a faint glow surrounded him and orange-reddish eye shades appeared and his whisker marks darkened slightly. Then he opened his eyes, they had changed to a golden color with a slim horizontal bar replacing his normal pupils. When Naruto got out of his musings and decided to get up, he saw the multitude of beings from fairy tales eyeing him adoringly. He gulped and looked over to Hinata and Shikamaru. Neither of them seemed to know what the hell was happening. Kagaya seemed unbothered, but eyes glued to him and on alert. It's real, some nymph said with dreamy voice. Finally another voice was heard. Never in my lifetime had I thought I'd. Eyes, this is getting unnerving, said Naruto, well unnerved. Hey, you're bothering Lord Naruto, give him and his companion some space, shouted Grover. The entire gathered crowd gasped and made some room as they backed away, afraid of upsetting him. Too late, Naruto was thoroughly freaked out as they all looked at him with glazed eyes and seemed to want to touch him to make sure he was real. Naruto cursed he had seen something similar. Yes, they had a resemblance to the most terrifying creature on earth, fangirls. Shikamaru arched an eyebrow. He could somewhat connect the dots from Grover's statement that this Lord Pan had faded, yet he couldn't help be amused that precisely Naruto had to be the one to so happen to, apparently, being able to tap onto this past deity domains. Never one to disappoint, Naruto commented Shikamaru with mirth. Naruto just groaned. Why are you calling him Lord?" interjected Hinata as she drew closer to Naruto. Some campers and a few satyrs eyed him with envy. Right, sorry, since the fading of Lord Pan, his domains and his kin, us, have been without a patron or guardian. For a time the apprentices of Lord Pan fulfilled this role, but they also began to dwindle in numbers, and like I said, since 200 years after his disappearance, no more sages appeared, till now, that is. In absence of our lord, a sage is by all rights the guardian and patron of us Fey folk, explained Grover, as all the Fey seemed to agree. Great, muttered Naruto with a facepalm and eyed Chiron on the back of the crowd with scrutinizing eyes. Well, I don't want to impose on you, so feel free to return to your daily activities, and it is not necessary to call me Lord. Naruto stressed the not hopping. It would stick, it would not. Who are you people? Finally Anabeth exploded as the Fae leave the arena. Where are you from? Exactly what is this clan of yours? How can you all be so strong and not have a blessing yet from your godly parents? Finished Anabeth. Naruto stared at her and noticed her grey eyes and blonde hair as she just stared at them, trying to figure out the puzzle they were. Trying to find the logic and reason to the seemingly impossible things they had done. You're from Athena's cabin, right? You're from Athena's cabin, right? Said both Shikamaru and Naruto at the same time, causing Hinata to chuckle a bit. Shikamaru had deduced this from the attitude she had had till now, as she was just observing and studying everything they did and said, and he quickly figured out her most likely godly parent. Naruto, however, has felt her emotions now in sage mode and noted the most predominant one was curiosity. Then Naruto had a stroke of inspiration and thought of a good way to stall the little girl. "Ahahaha, great idea, Kitu," it bellowed Kurama. "Great idea, lad, might also give you an excuse to keep an eye on her," added Son Goku. "I thought Naruto. Call it a gut feeling." "Come on, can't wait to see the little twerp despair at the task at hand," shouted Shukaku with mirth at the idea. "Oh Naruto-kun, such a little devil you are," giggled Matatabi. "Tell you what, Onagaki, if you can beat my man Shikamaru here and Shogi, I'll answer all, and I mean all, the questions you can come up with." Anabeth turned her head to Shikamaru, who just muttered, "Troublesome chibi woman, you do know Shogi." "Yes, I play chess more, but I know the rules." "It's settled then, you'll play Shikamaru, and if manage to beat him just one time I'll answer your questions, but if you quit I'll cash in a favor when I want to, however I want to, whatever I want to." Anabeth thought the terms a little off, but paid it no mind. Win a game of shogi, with some practice it shouldn't be a problem, right? Two figures approached their intended target under the cover of night. Trying their best to be as stealthy as possible, they crouched roughly 10 meters away from their target. They wore all black and covered their faces with some balaclavas. They quickly opened their backpacks and took out some crystal vials filled with the foulest smelling liquid you could conceive. Minotaur armpit sweat, it had cost them greatly to get, but it would be worth it once the operation it's a success. "Ready, my brother?" "I was born ready, partner." They bumped fists. "We must be precise. Chirurgical, precise. Like a shadow. Silent and deadly. And we shall." They started to get near the entrance at slower pace. Luckily it was half opened. Just as they were about 5 meters or so they heard a metallic sound. Click. Cleeing. But there was a flash of light and a loud bang that made their ears ringing. Then they felt something akin to rubber hitting them at high speeds all over their body. Ouch. Fuck. No fair. What the? How? Screaming at each hit as they tried to retreat, the onslaught ended when they were hit on the face and some powder filled the air, then oblivion came. A few hours later Chiron was walking towards the mess hall and saw the Johnson twins, George and Fred, yes those two, but with different last names, 9, from Hermes' cabin. It seemed that the prankster kings had finally met their match with the Slayers, or Shinobi as they preferred to refer to themselves. Recent arrival. Not that he could actually prove it, or anyone for that account. They simply left no traces, making more than one remember the legends of old about the Eastern ninjas and their feats of stealth. Just as he could barely prove that the sudden increase in voluntaries for nearly forgotten courses like foraging, stealth, hunting, outdoor survival, pentathlon, meditation, library duty, etc. was there doing in any way. Despite the fact that most of them were people that had tried to mess with the 40th in some way or another, the signatures and all the paperwork were legit with no visible forgery, visible, keyword there. So in a similar fashion, he had no way to actually prove that the one responsible for the twins' upside down hanging, their multiple paint marks on their body, and fluorescent pink and blue dyed hairs were in any way the Shinobis group fault. Said group was actually eating peacefully while the other campers were just finishing their morning runs, again. That he could prove they did, as they actually did more exercises in the morning and evening than the ones required in the camp. Mr. Johnson's, I'm glad to find you this early. It's my pleasure to tell you that your request to enter the stealth, hunting and library service courses have been approved. Please be sure to finish your breakfasts and be on time for your new classes. I'll leave your schedules besides this tag here, said Chiron, and a groan from both was his only answer as he clipped the paper beside what seemed to be a grating note with a big F at that. It also read, a shadow isn't so damn noisy, too damn late in the night, lowly peasants and troublesome. The other campers saw the former king pranksters and smirked at them, not feeling a shred of pity at them. They had it coming. Most of the campers had come to terms, mostly, with the new arrivals in the last week. Besides the fact they weren't as young as them, kids, brats, snooty whiny babies. Take your pick, they've proven to not need some of the courses as they already were fit enough, strong enough or smart enough, which in turn only made the intrigue for their heavenly parent more strong. Actually, there were some running bets about it. Some had still some kind of grudge or bone to pick. Mostly the Ares cabin, but of those people happened to be certain daughter of Athena. Said girl was just entering the mess hall and passed Chiron, absent-mindedly greeting him when she saw the group. Chiron just chuckled, her bet with Shikamaru was already well known to all the camp and somehow it transformed into an all-out challenge against the Athena's cabin. While the bet only covered Annabeth, all her brother and sisters had joined in trying to beat Shikamaru on a shogi game. Sadly none have beaten him as off yet. Add to the insult, as some called it, Shikamaru never really seemed to be paying attention to the games and just boredly eyed the pieces and moved again. Yo. Anna-san, care to join us? Greeted Naruto to Annabeth as she entered. Good morning, Annabeth-san followed Hinata. Kagaya smiled and bowed lightly. Shikamaru, he just went to sleep. Annabeth wanted to groan, again. You know that we all have our own tables according to our cabins. So? Don't sweat it, besides if this is the traveler's cabin table, then let's just say you travel to our table. Annabeth gave the blonde sunshine a look and was about to say something, but Naruto flicked a biscuit to her mouth, effectively shutting her up. Don't be so uptight, think outside the box, he responded. Take his word for it, Annabeth-san responded Hinata with a caring smile while she sipped her tea. Kagaya giggled at that and Shikamaru snorted in his sleep. Hey. He's supposed to be asleep. He is, answered both Hinata and Naruto absent-mindedly. Annabeth nearly faulted, this four were gonna be her end, she thought bitterly as she went to her table. Kagaya was looking at Shikamaru wondering how he was actually asleep while poking him with a fork. Shikamaru just groaned and half-assed a hand swat. So how is little Annabeth coming along, asked Hinata. Great, considering she's not one to see beyond the books. How many moves? 150. 152, corrected Shikamaru. The others last about 70 or 80, chuckled Naruto. 70 or 80 what? If you don't mind me intruding, Naruto-san called Chiron, mindful of the Eastern honorifics. Not at all, Chiron-sensei, those were the number of moves that it took Shikamaru to win the games against the cabin's 6 members. I'm assuming that's low. Yeah, somewhat, we're talking about Shikamaru here. Chiron arched an eyebrow and filled away the info. Hey Uzugaki, still up for later tonight, asked the god of madness suddenly from behind them. Hey, only if you and Chiron-sensei are Dio-sensei. Seriously kid, I'm starting to think Titch is your heavenly parent with that luck of yours. You willing to bet on that? Asked a now awake Shikamaru. Not on the underworld, responded said god with off waving as he left them. Chiron chuckled, being amused remembering young Naruto's impressive abilities in poker. They were appalling to say the least, and his companions weren't so much behind with their expert bluffing. Well, pleasantries aside, I expect you four to attend to your modified classes. I'm sure you're aware that even if you're above par of most of the campers, no one is unbeatable. Yes, of course, Chiron-sensei, responded Hinata, and Naruto just nodded. You don't say, chided darkly Shikamaru, and Kagaya had the faintest eye twitch as she sipped some tea. Chiron noted but blamed it on their clan's affair and left politely. Sorry, Kagaya-san. It's okay, Shikamaru-san. A hard truth remains the truth. Anyway, what have you learned, Shikamaru? Asked Naruto while putting a sound distortion seal on the table. As it turns out, this past week the four had decided that each of them would discreetly gather info on their own. Shikamaru had taken to go through the library arcades while using his matches against the cabin 6 to get a feel of supposed children of a god. Naruto had taken to test and evaluate the fighting prowess of the creature, campers and teachers, and just how effective were the training programs. Hinata, using her Byakugan and sensory skills, proved around the security perimeter, wards and the barrier. Finally, Kagaya had been analyzing the girls trapped in the tree very intently so she could figure out how to free her. All of this done discreetly on their spare time or during their classes, masked as mild curiosity or feigning ignorance while taking notes silently. Speaking of classes, they had managed to convince Chiron and most of the senseis that they were above the standard training that the other campers were given. It actually took an effort, but after a sparring test against the proctors, Chiron was convinced, so after some brainstorming he and the proctors came up with an advanced course of sorts. If it worked out they might implement it with campers that exceeded the basic courses. From what I've gathered most of the mythos is roughly the same, but I came up with some interesting facts. Firstly, these so-called monsters come on two presentations. They can be the actual mythical figure or just some sort archetype. As such, let's say if a fury-type monsters was pitted against one of the underworld kindly one's furies, the kindly one would come on top and they seem to possess an ego. These archetypes seem to be fed and sustained by some sort of magical grid or ley line in the ambient, however there isn't a clear way as how a new archetype can be born. When you kill one either of them they go to the underworld or in some cases deeper onto Tartarus, waiting to the chance to reform again in the living world. It seems these monsters can actually detect, often referred as smelling them, and the more the subject is aware of their status as demigod, the more easily can they be detected. It's also hinted that they have some sort of protection till they're 15, and upon that age the ward is removed, as such they tend to be sent to this camp 3 to 4 years early. But why are they hunted like so? Asked Hinata. Honestly, because all the gods are jealous hypocrites, but alas, it's mainly because the Thunder Lord own ego and paranoia. But all of this worsened apparently when the last 3 sons of the Thunder Lord. Sparks asshole. Ocean Lord. Wet Willy bastard. And the Lord of the Underworld. Shadow Brooder. Had about in a world war, since then supposedly they agreed to not have any more kids. Not surprisingly, it seems the first to break the agreement was the Thunder Lord, and everyone suspects that the other 2 already had their own already. There seems to a prophecy hanging over heads revolving about their kids, and given that one has already been revealed, I believe the other 2 must be around age. Given the Greeks' tendency to follow prophecies they'll probably focus a lot solely on that and likely overlook details, Naruto groaned. Relax Naruto-kun, I'm sure we can work our way around, added Hinata with a smile. Yeah, I just hate when people get hung up on prophecies, so we can expect to sooner or later encounter or hear about more demigods of the 3 idiots, and it's safe to assume that they will be stronger than most demigods. I'll go with your deduction Shika and assume the other 2 are already out there hidden or unaware. We'll make it a secondary priority to find them. I don't like the thought of the kids fending for themselves without preparation. Speaking of which, what do you think of the campers' abilities and training, asked Shikamaru. Naruto pondered before answering. Well, they certainly are subpar to any hidden village. If I had to say, they have a good training considering their age and time. However, it's not enough. If they are being prepared to face the monster we have faced the past months, it's like sending to the slaughterhouse. Shikamaru and Hinata nodded in agreement while Kagaya remained impassive. I believe it's a combination of Jiren-sensei being too overprotective, trying to give him a sort of childhood, and the lack of attention from the Council of 12. Since part of our mission is to mitigate damage in case the war does break out, I'm half of mind to suggest Jiren-sensei up the training regiment, if anything just to give them a better shot at staying alive in their supposed quests. If I had to place them at a village ranking, the strongest ones are barely at high genin, fresh chunin if they're awarded with some godly gift. First and foremost, I highly doubt any of them have actually had a kill in Konoha. They all would still be considered fresh out of the academy mostly. Though the proctors and senpai seem to have a better mentality, they all hummed it was matter of mentality. I agree in that regard, the wards that I have encountered are flimsy and very weak, full of holes and barely enough. Most of them only try to dissuade trespassers to turn around or disorient them. It's actually very concerning. The only proper barrier is the one recently put up by the incident with a girl a few months back, but it looks like it's the kind that only blocks things from the outside. So in theory something cloud be summoned from the inside already, deduced Shikamaru. Most likely, unfortunately. It won't do well to us to have uninvited guests. Hinata, please play some proper wards with Kagaya, but make them discreet, said Naruto in his commander voice. Hi. Speaking of which, Kagaya, any luck with Thalia's stasis seal? Yes Naruto-sama, I've determined that the girl was used as power source of sorts and integrated to the spell in question. First she was put on a stasis fusing her with the tree, but said tree already had the function of barrier generator. Do you think you can free her? Asked hopefully Naruto. There are ways, but they would require you to unseal a lot of power and that would draw a lot of attention. Kagaya bowed slightly in shame. Naruto waved her reassuringly and pondered what to do. He certainly wanted to free the girl, but the mission couldn't be compromised. Those that abandon the mission are trash, but those that abandon their friends are worse than trash. Naruto smiled, remembering those words. He would have to think of a way to make both goals meet. Wait, you said she was integrated as a power source, must Shikamaru. What if we switch the power source, said Naruto, as his eyes widened at the thought and inspiration hit him. But what could replace an actual living being, chided Hinata. Not a what but a who. I could leave a clone with enough chakra. Better yet, I'll leave a blood clone with enough chakra to last a lifetime. The Biju nodded in agreement. With their chakra, they could provide enough output to simulate an actual human. Shikamaru and Hinata eyes widened but immediately saw the possibilities. Kagaya looked actually stunned at the subtlety of the idea. Certainly it was much easier to just make a switch rather than trying to just dispel the damn thing. Yes, that certainly is more easily accomplished, as expected of you, Naruto-sama, said Kagaya with a smile. Naruto groaned but said nothing about it. Later in the afternoon, a crowd was gathering in the training arena. Word had spread that Naruto was going to have a friendly spar with Chiron. There were rumors flying around about a possible new curriculum. There was a lot of tension in the air as the new arrivals saw that both combatants were truly preparing for spar. They all had read or heard about the trainer of heroes, but none had actually seen him as anything else as a friendly advisor and mentor. This was completely unheard of. There in the arena stood the great trainer with a halberd tipped on both ends in the same fashion. A spearhead of wavy edge in between two crescent moon on either side, one slightly bigger than the other, one tip being counterpart to the other. His opponent stood in front with Zanbuto as big as he was resting on his shoulders. Then Naruto-san, you ready? Just swords in hand to hand. Yes, Taijutsu and Kenjutsu only. It is Shikamaru stood as referee and simply waved his hand as a starting signal. Begin, he said lazily. Some campers actually sweat dropped at the anticlimactic gesture. Naruto actually throwed the beheader blade, surprising Chiron, who dodged swiftly and blocked Naruto's stab with a kunai to his gut. He tried to push him back, but Naruto stopped exerting pressure and slipped past him. Chiron raised his front legs as Naruto slashed at them and twirled the halberd to get him away from there. Naruto backflipped and threw more kunais as a distraction. Chiron dodged them with surprising dexterity and made to pursue the agile blonde. Naruto grabbed a Kubikurabunch and blocked the strike from Chiron, but he spun the halberd and delivered another strike. Naruto ducked and somersaulted high over a low sweep of the halberd. He used a somersault to deliver a centrifugal enhanced vertical blow to Chiron. The great trainer had to parry the blow with twirl of the halberd. As it turns out, at the moment of the blow, Naruto let go of the blade and grabbed the pole of the halberd. He swung himself and kicked hard at Chiron's head. He managed to block the kick with his arm and Naruto barely grazed him at the forehead. Not having done yet, Naruto used the momentum and twisted himself and made a stab to the neck with a kunai in reverse grip. Chiron lurched backward and stood on his hind legs to knock off the blonde. Naruto took a page from the Hyugas and striked an pressure point on the arm, hoping his human half had the same pressure points as normal. He got half the results as he noticed the Chiron grip the halberd slightly weaker, but his arm wasn't paralyzed, his muscles felt more dense and packed. He grabbed a Kubikurabunch again and lurched forward even faster than last time and started an honest sword fight, slashing and striking single-handedly with deadly accuracy. At moments the young blonde kicked at his legs to debilitate them or strike at nerve clusters, numbing his arms and forearms. His hands were hurting after so many blocks and parries, as his strikes were so strong they felt like blocking a boulder, and the massive blade mass pushed him back more and more. Although Chiron didn't felt a true killer intent, he did notice that every strike coming from the blonde was potentially deadly. Even the feints and distraction could be fatal if not blocked in time. It was painfully obvious to him in the teen's eyes. He had seen carnage, he had been in the battlefield, he had killed. The battle prowess and experience belied his young appearance. That's why these shinobi were so above even some of the proctors. Because they had already been at the brink of death, they already knew the truth of true battle, kill or be killed. Some odd 30 minutes had passed and there was still no clear victor, but Chiron knew that the blonde outclassed him in raw strength. If he were to enter his sage mode, he wouldn't be able to block the strikes. Both of them were breathing somewhat haggard and had some nicks here and there on their clothes, but no blood had been drawn yet. I think that's enough, Naruto-san. I made up my decision. Please seek out later to discuss a proposition I have for you. He was as good in other areas as fighting. Scratch that, if any of them was as good in anything as Naruto had been. Then it would be an idea worth the trouble. Naruto for his part arched an eyebrow but nodded and bowed. Naruto dreamed, he dreamed of times past. He was young again, freshly out of the academy, but already seen a snippet of the harshness of the ninja world. The wave debacle had marked him for life, but in a positive way. From this event was that he figured his nindo and how he resolved to live his life, or started to at least. Anyway, right now he was relieving the Otosuna invasion, but much to his surprise. It was like watching a movie, as he was seeing all in third person. It was cool but weird. Let dreams be dreams, he guessed. Right now he was in pursuit of the team as he chased Gaara out of petty pride. He wanted to face Vault at the memory. He wondered if he could see other things. Much to his surprise, at the moment he thought of that, he got a bird view of the whole invasion. He got curious and wished he could see the fight with the pedo snake and his Jiji. He zoomed in and had an overview of the fight. At first it all followed as he was told it went. The ambush on the stands, Orochimaru revealing himself and the barrier set up by the Sound 4. Then it went weird as the pedo snake summoned two more Ito Tensei's sarcophagus. Odd, I remember Kakashi sensei telling me he summoned the first two Hokages, and that was it. As he continued watching, his breathing hitched when the lids fell off, revealing the bodies inside. Apparently in this dream Oro team summoned his Tusan and his Kachan. Even if it was a dream he was pretty pissed off by the idea. Orochimaru. You have gone too far. His Jiji shouted with pure contempt for his past apprentice. Wow, he had never actually seen the old man that pissed off. Man, Jiji sure is pissed, badly. Oh my sensei, if I knew summoning them would rile you up like this, I would have done so from the beginning, responded Orochimaru with a chuckle, but Naruto was sure that even him felt a shiver crawl up his spine as he received the killing intent from the old man. Just as Orochimaru was going to apply his obedience tags, something in Sarutobi seemed to snap. With newfound strength he blasted off, leaving the two past Hokages stunned at his sudden burst of speed. Orochimaru dazed for a second because of the surprise, but in that second Hiruzen made his move and launched Enma in his bow form at terminal speed. Now, Enma. He shouted as the bow suddenly expanded wide as it also lengthened, striking Orochimaru's extended right forearm, smashing it completely and leaving hanging limp just some torn pieces of flesh. Even if he could repair the damage, the pain of it made Orochimaru grunt and swear bloody murder. Phew. You shitty old man, go die already like worthless pie. He could finish that as Hiruzen's soul slammed to his face, sending off a few feet. He turned to two of his most precious people. Well, damn, was all Naruto could think. He could swear he heard a crunching sound. Minato, Kushina. I'll set you free. At this the two figures seemed to snap out of a daze and looked at him thoroughly confused. The third tried to cancel the summoning, but Orochimaru kept getting in the way. They kinda seem in a daze though, Naruto. Third. Why wait the Kyuubi, Kushina? Mumbled his father's corpse. Mina-kun. What Sarutobi, what? Said Kachan as she glanced at the sight before them. Orochimaru chuckled and sneered at them. Okay, this dream is getting out of hand. Why isn't this a lovely get-together? The Yondaime, after giving his life protecting the village from the terrible nine-tailed fox, is given a second chance to meet his wife and destroy this accursed village. Shouted Orochimaru before he laughed like a lunatic. Great, now he just needs to add the wahahaha laugh. Really hope he doesn't cause this being in my head, that would be too much for me. But I died in another place, I was already dead. Said Tuchan in a low tone. Yeah, I died 2 times. Kushina, not so. No, both. 2 sets of memories, responded Minato. Orochimaru seemed to not take notice and continued his rambling. Both sets? That's actually a very strange to say. But you two should be happy, after all is this shitty village that is manhandled, abused and made a pariah of your precious son, Kukuku, for the past 12 years. Damn Oro team, I had forgotten how good he was to get under your skin. There were some explosions in the distance and he saw himself riding Gamabunta. A shiver ran up his spine remembering that specific ride. Then something caught his attention as his Tuchan's face scrounged in though and a very unfamiliar scowl marred his expression. Suddenly his Tuchan's form started to change at rapid pace. First his decrepit form filled out, replaced by healthy-looking skin, albeit with some sort of crack here and there, then his changes became more dramatic as the kanji for soul glowed on his chest and the cracks started expand over. His body started dissolving like papers picked up by the wind, revealing a whole other person beneath. This was a young man with large but lean physique, brown eyes and striking orange hair, and was towering over Orochimaru with roughly 1.80 meters. He was wearing a black shihakishima, a bone-white shoulder plate with crossed straps where rested a black oversized kyber knife with a grip at the base of the blade and a handle extending back from this, about roughly the width and length of his forearm. It had a thin, hollowed-out portion running along the back edge of the blade from the base to the middle of the blade. A second blade rested on his hip. It was relatively small, about the size of his arm and similar to the first blade, but resembled a trench knife with an enclosed guard. But he couldn't even finish that though, as this new guy battered Orochimaru to the ground with extreme prejudice. Seriously, what the foo, and he was awake again in Camp Half-Blood. He groaned as the dream slowly faded to oblivion. Naruto groaned as he awoke and began his morning rituals. Still before dawn, he and the other 3 would wake up. They'd arm themselves in light armor and do some warm-ups and stretches before running lap around the camp. Then a few quick sparring rounds were in order with pure taijutsu, just tap out and shadow fighting. Once done they'd rinse themselves and go to the main hall for breakfast. He idly wondered what he dreamed about as he ate some eggs with bacon, but dismissed it. Returning his thoughts to important matters, if his suspicions were right, Chiron-sensei might ask them to either enter an advanced course planned by the veterans as the pilot group of sorts, or that they create the program in itself. He'd better ask Shika for ideas, though he might already have 5 or 6 full programs. He almost chuckled at the idea. He finished his breakfast as the first campers started to enter and made their offerings. Still couldn't wrap his head around the idea of offering, as they called it, the first food of the day to their patrons. Literally. They had to throw food onto the fire. That's the only reason he hadn't requested ramen for breakfast. Alas, he also offered his food to Hermes, if just to keep appearances. He wondered, would he able to make an offering to Amaterasu-chan? Food for thought, huh? Something wrong, Naruto? Asked Hinata curiously. Nah, just wondering about the offering thing, he responded offhandedly. Oh that, yeah, it's quite the thing, not sure I understand it fully, she replied as she got up from the table, as Naruto followed her. Kagaya, could you wake up Shika? I believe Chiron-sensei wanted a word with us, asked Naruto, raising slightly his voice. Of course, she replied respectfully, yet a tiny smirk flashed through her face. Naruto glanced over and Shikamaru was still asleep. Oh well, fair warning was made though, Naruto. Hinata tapped lightly on his shoulder and chuckled. You're impossible, Naruto, she said with a fake glare. He believe it, he replied with his trademark smirk. Just then the sound of something cutting through the air was heard. Arg. Grea. They both just snorted and waited for their two companions. So then we are all in accordance, stated Chiron more than asking. Surrounding him were the other teacher and graduated campers. Most of them had expressions of acceptance and excitement, though some remained skeptic about the matter. So we're just to hand it all to 'em new kids, then? Asked one veteran from the Ares cabin. Chiron almost sighed and pinched his nose bridge. No, Mr. Marcus, as I already said before, what I'm going to propose to Mr. Naruto and his group is their help to create an advanced course. I'm already sure that they're capable fighters and yesterday's demonstration was set up to exhibit this. As such, I want them to lend us their knowledge and skills. Alas, we still need to see if they would make good teachers, as you know, being good at something and being good at teaching it are different subjects, he said pointedly to some of them. That's why first we need to know how would they set it up, if it's reproducible, and make sure that the program can run its course, even if they left complimented an instructor from the Athens cabin. Exactly, confirmed Chiron. And what about the other three? We didn't get a demonstration yesterday. Asked another one curiously. Well, considering that Mr. Naruto is their leader, I'd wager that they're about the same or maybe slightly below him power-wise. Again, from I've seen, each of them appears to have an area of expertise. We'll be able to see more in time, as it stands yesterday's demonstration was just that, a glimpse merely. Don't be fooled, Mr. Naruto's rumors of he being a sage are no joke. Had he entered the sage state, I would have been sorely outclassed strength-wise, he finished with an air of finality. Some of the veteran gawked and paled at their teacher admission. I'll go see if there are any mysterious victims in the mess hall, then he said with evident mirth, and some of the instructors snorted. Just then a swishing sound was heard, followed by a pained scream. Arg. Grea. The shinobi group was shortly intercepted after they had grouped together by Chiron. As he approached, he noticed Shikamaru's face marred on the side by a thin red line as he half-glared the blonde leader and the stoic beauty of the group. He chuckled a little at the group antics. Ah, Naruto-san, Hinata-san, Shikamaru-san, Kagaya-san, good morning, how do you all fare? Morning, Chiron-sensei. Good morning to you too, Chiron-sensei. HNN. Greetings. Wow, Shika speaks, Uchiha, snorted Naruto after they all saluted the centaur teacher, at which Shikamaru just rolled his eyes, Hinata giggled, and Kagaya smirked a little. Chiron roughly understood what was said, but couldn't relate to the joke, still he understood more than enough it was jab at the laziness of the sleepy genius. Thank you, now why don't we take a walk? As I said yesterday, I have some things that I would like to discuss with you for. To those in know how, Sally Jackson might as well be a saint and the very personification of self-sacrifice. Seeing as she was willing to put up with the excuse for human named Gabe Ugliano. A pathetic loser too dumb to realize it himself, too fat, too self-important and arrogant, so human that Percy's demigod smell was completely masked for now. The ignorant could only see a beautiful mother summiting to a veritable man scum, cookies for those that guessed the reference, not even her own son knew the real reason, and all for his safety. She knew that it hurted and frustrated his dear Percy what she did and how she let Gabe run over her, and that this frustration was being released somewhat in his rebellious attitude on school. It didn't matter. As long as her Percy was safe, she repeated to herself in a sort of mantra. Babe started to complain that she dared ask of him to pick her up after work in the cafe. She wanted to bash his head onto the sidewalk, and this had been a bad day, so she was so very tempted. It would be so easy. He was a pig of a man after all, just trip him and let gravity do its work. Alas, Gabe's abuse continued undeterred, and she just took the jeering, snide comments and occasional public slap on her ass. The only reason she didn't retaliate, well, second only, was the hungry-looking chimera that prowled on the other side of the street. It was on these moments that Gabe's pungent smell covered her traces of any godly-related tracks on her. So she gritted her teeth and pressed on as she eyed carefully the beast, trying to appear ignorant of its presence. You can do it, just like always. It'll smell. Gabe become disgusted and it'll leave afterwards, she though, and it would have worked like always if not for an unexpected arrival. Hey. Leave her alone, lard tub, she obviously doesn't want to be with you. Clish, I know, meh, shouted a blonde young man in front of them. What did you say, shitty brat? Bad and deaf to boot, replied the blonde. What? As fuck too, please do evolution a favor and kill yourself. Or get eaten, either works, he replied with a smirk as he eyed Sally. She on her end was on the verge of a panic attack. The chimera was too close for comfort. She wasn't about to risk it for the man with seemingly noble intentions. As much as she was grateful for it. When the last sentences left his mouth and he subtly looked at her, she had the sinking feeling that he was more than he let on. His wording was far too spot on and his look too knowing. "I'm here so I can pound some respect for your betters in you thick skull brat," nearly screeched Gabe. "Wow, easy there lard breath, don't want the few neurons you have to burn out with so many words," the blonde said as he already face to face. Sort of, with the obviously smaller form of Gabe. Sally tried to defuse the situation and make Gabe drive home already. "Please your miss," she tried to interrupt, but she was silenced by Gabe. "You stay out of this, slut." As soon as he turned to her to point his meaty finger at her, too many things happened at the same time. The young man grabbed Gabe by the other arm by the wrist and twisted it in an awkward angle. Crunch, snap, pop. Those sickening sounds were heard, and just like that, Gabe's arm hung loosely by his side and his wristed looked like it was mauled. Then without missing a beat, the blonde man turned to face directly the chimera and stroked Gabe in the face with the back of his fist. Gabe actually was lifted from the ground and spun in the air before falling unceremoniously on the hard concrete unconscious. Why again she was unable to finish as a shift in the shadows caught her attention, and two men ran up to the chimera garbed in combat clothes and white masks. One of them jumped impossibly high and throwed something that exploded and created a smokescreen right on the chimera's face. The other slipped past below the beast, and once behind it he did something with his arm and a pillar of stone actually jutted from the pavement and hit the chimera in its underbelly. It roared in pain, fury and sharply turned backwards, only to be met with capture net with papers tied to it. The chimera tried to free itself from it, not giving it rest, but the first one throwed what looked like a knife with a lit up paper in a soft arc. The knife impacted on its back and the whole net ignited in an explosion that shook the street, and all that remained was golden dust and some items dropped by the chimera. Sally was completely speechless. Chimeras were supposed to be one of the most feared monsters among the demigods and fae, yet one was just slayed in quick manner in front of her. She was snapped from her though as she heard the blonde call an ambulance. "Yes, come quickly," there was a loud boom, and there's a man laying on the sidewalk. He then turned to her. "What are you?" she asked worryingly. The blonde seemed to look at her in a sort of approval at her reaction. "I understand your concern, but I assure you we just want to help. We were going to kill off the monster, but we saw you being mishandled by the turd over there as you eyed the chimera, so our suppositions were that you are in need of his stench to hide your relation to the other side of the world," said the blonde. "Addition, you seemed to restrain yourself a lot while enduring his abuse. We concluded that either you had no fighting skill or some means to escape. Or someone close to you depends on you and the secrecy. Judging by the veiled defiance on your eyes and face, I'd say it's the last," added one of the masked one. Looking more closely she could make out the bird-like design on the mask, an owl most likely. Sally again was stunned into silence as these warriors deduced so much so quickly. They could also have been spying on her, but at the moment the thought never crossed her mind. Before she could finish processing everything, the blonde one gently put his hand on her back and urged her to follow him, and she obliged. "Look, I know that you really don't have any reasons to trust us, and that for someone to help a stranger so much would be very suspicious, but please believe me that we just acted on our beliefs and we are able to provide you much needed help," he said to her as his cerulean eyes bore onto her pleadingly for her to believe him. Sally, much to her disconcert, as she became naturally distrustful through the years, believed him. Something in his eyes made her believe that he honestly wanted to help her. "Okay," she said, and suddenly realized the other two were nowhere to be seen. "Don't worry, they are here, still just hidden. So who depends on you?" "My son," she bit her lip and then continued. "We used Gabe's smell to mask his godly parentage," she said mournfully. "Does he?" "No. That would only make Percy's smell stronger. He's unaware, but he's turning 12. His smell will only get more potent, and to make matters worse, Percy keeps inquiring about his dad. I can tell that he starts to realize I'm hiding something," she said mournfully, to having to lie to his son. I'll take a guess and say you live with the pig." She only nodded her head. "We have a safe here in New York. Would you be willing to move to it? I can assure you it's very well warded. It can hide full-grown demigods from even the 12, he reassured her quickly as she snapped her neck at him so fast he almost winced. Again she looked at his eyes and found no deceit in them. "Okay," she said tiredly but nonetheless grateful to be rid of Gabe. "Tell me the address and we'll go for all of your stuff." Naruto paused a bit. "I will be difficult to explain this to your son. You might want to consider breaking it up to your kid. I know it's not my business, but I can tell you from experience that being kept a secret from you by someone close and them still doing so despite you knowing hurts a lot." He paused and waited if she was about to rebuke or get angry. Since she didn't, he continued, "Just think about it." "Okay," she barely croaked as she felt guilty all over again. She handed him a paper with the address as she didn't trust her voice at the moment, too many emotions were passing through her, both good and bad. He opened the door of a SUV for her and watched him make a call as he boarded it too. They were off to Gabe's apartment. When they arrived there were half a dozen people already there waiting for them. As she opened the door for them they silently started to sort things and occasionally asked if something was hers or not. They very efficiently emptied all hers and Percy's things and neatly packed it all. Then one of them came with Percy still asleep in arm. "Light sleeping spell, so he doesn't get startled," he said in a whisper, and she just mouthed a thank you. She would talk with him in the morning. School be damned. Of course she wasn't sure how to explain. Or what exactly to explain for that matter. Once every single piece of evidence that once lived a mother and her son in the apartment was extracted, they left none the wiser. As they moved through the streets she was mentally numb, exhausted and spent. So many emotions on the course of few hours. Yet she felt oddly at peace and relieved, and she just contented herself to play with her son's unruly hair as he sleeps still on her lap. Peacefully the street light passed by her and she let herself, since who knows when, to pass out and sleep. The clones just smiled at the scene. A Shikamaru clone placed another sleep genjutsu on her this time, and very carefully they laid both mother and son on the master bed of the 2 stories penthouse and left them rest the night without worries. They checked the wards just to be sure, and one Shikamaru and one Naruto dispelled themselves to inform the main bodies of the situation. Apollo winced as he got another pang of pain from the headache these shifting vision were giving him. Damn, whatever or whoever was doing this wasn't pulling any punches. Almost every shift in the past months had been somewhat big. Big enough that every single time they ranged from moderate pain to head-splitting headache. He was kinda glad that for once the fates didn't know what to do, most likely. At least he hoped that they were having as much or maybe more trouble with the future as him. The thought of it was well worth it. Damn, hags needed someone to make him sweat. He, leaving aside the headaches, was actually enjoying not knowing what was gonna happen beforehand, and it was very refreshing. His search for the strangers had bored little successes, but he was slowly picking up the trail. He had had some glimpses here and there in area around NYC and the little town surrounding it, but had yet to inform the rest of the council of his findings. Why should he? This just too good to pass up. He almost felt like Hermes before one of his pranks. His father would most probably just zap the responsibles for whatever excuse he thought of. Athena would simply study them, use them and discard them once she lost interest, Ares would fight kill them, and dear sister would turn them in jacalops or turn any female in a hunter. Speaking of which, he wondered just why had his dear sister requested him to meet her in her temple. Thinking about it, she had barely presented herself in meetings since that odd rise of natural power that one time. Better get over with this, he was sure, a little more, and he'd have the location of those masked ones. "I'm sorry Chiron-sensei, but it's something that we cannot put off," said Hinata apologetically. "Really?" "Yes, we may be able to contact some kinsmen, but we must make haste," said Naruto. "And pray tell, how do you know?" "We leave some wards in relatively safe places or locations that could serve as safe houses. Said wards have been triggered. But protocol dictates that if certain time has passed, the one who triggered them must leave for safety reasons," quickly followed Shikamaru without missing a beat. "We hope to be able to contact them and maybe bring them back here to camp." "Yes, certainly it would be beneficial for all to have for able hands, and I really hope you are able to meet up with your family members. How long do you figure you'll be out?" "Regardless of whether we manage to meet up or not, it shouldn't take longer than a week," said Naruto offhandedly. Chiron sighed and relented. "Okay, it's not like I could stop you, but I really don't like campers to expose themselves like this. I guess I still see all campers as kids to look out for." "We appreciate the feeling, Chiron-sensei, but like we said before, this has been our life since childhood. We are no strangers to danger, and we've come to terms with it long time ago," said Hinata reassuringly as she put her hand on Chiron's forearm. The old centaur sighed again and nodded to the young adults as they departed. It may be arrogant of him, but he really wished he could do more for these kids. Not only the shinobis, but all of the campers, all of the heroes. They all had their childhoods robbed of them, and all just for petty arguments millennia old. Percy awoke groggily in the quite big bed he had with his mother. Since they had moved out from Gabe's apartment a few days ago, he had been ecstatic. So happy he was that only now was he wondering why and how his mother had been able to leave that scumbag. After all, the new place was pretty damn big. It seemed to house without problems his mom and him, in addition to those people that seemed to come and go all the time. Right now he only knew that some rooms were off limits and belonged to the owners. He was actually very curious about whose exactly was this apartment. Another thing to ask his mom. He only knew that the night a few days ago they saw Gabe about to hit his mom and stopped him. More like beat him shitless if he had extrapolated correctly his mother's words. Good riddance in Percy's opinion, still he guessed it was about time to know more and call him paranoid, but this was New York, people don't just offer housing. Less so one this grand, just because. He got up from bed, changed and went down to the kitchen. His mother was helping to make breakfast and 4 people that he had never seen were there. The girl, well more like young woman, that figure was way past girl. Bad Percy. Anyway. She was cooking while his mother helped. She had a slender figure and clear skin, her hair seemed to shift from blackish blue to teal with the light. As weird as that was, and a very beautiful face. She had an apron on top of her light violet sweater and some kind of sport black pants with many pockets and combat boots. That last item made a funny contrast with the apron in his opinion. She seemed very content while cooking and hummed some slow tempo tune. She had good voice, he had to say. On the table were 2 men who also some form-fitting clothes that seemed sporty yet rough though. The blonde had the black pants with many pockets and the combat boots. He wore what seemed like a burnt orange elastic long-sleeved shirt. On top of it he carried several holsters like the ones police had, though this one seemed for knives. While he drank from a cup, maybe coffee, the one beside him was reading on some papers, and were those actually scrolls? Weird, be as it may, the last one was also a woman that was milling around setting up the table. Boy was she a babe. Bad Percy, bad thoughts away. She had lacquer black hair that seemed to suck the light and white skin that he swore it was unnatural, but it wasn't unhealthy looking. Her attire was a complete turnaround from the other 3. She wore a white kimono. Thank God for a name that he knew what it was. It had some color imprints on the sleeves, but remained very simplistic yet elegant. Following suit, this all her was a simplistic yet elegant beauty. Her eyes were very light teal colored, and at the distance they might lose themselves on the white of the eyes. She didn't seem to wear makeup of any kind, yet her face was the most beautiful he had seen till now, and those dotted eyebrows of hers made for something refined in his mind. He had actually stood there a good minute following her movements as she seemingly glided with elegant and majestic grace. Percy was broken from his thought when the blonde chuckled and made his mother turn around and see him. "Percy? Honey, come, we're almost finished making breakfast. Be sure to introduce yourself to Hinata and her friends, we owe them a lot." "Hi. I'm Percy Jackson, are you the owners of this condo?" "Yes, we are Percy-kun, a pleasure to meet you, I'm Naruto," said the blonde as he shook his hand. Percy recognized the honorifics from Japan. "Thank you very much, really. You don't look very Japanese," they all chuckled, while the pale beauty just smirked. "Percy?" chided his mom. "It's okay, Shikamaru. And we're what would be called mixed-blooded, one of our parents or grandparents wasn't from Oriental descent." "Oh, sorry, I do have a motor mouth from time to time." "Don't worry, Percy-kun, you're not the first person to ask that and you won't be last. It really doesn't bother us." "I'm Hinata, it's a pleasure," she said as put a plate with rolled eggs, miso he guessed, and some fried sausages with orange juice. And waved him come and sit. If an I'm was being true, this was a mixed Western Eastern style breakfast. "Have a seat please, I'm Kagaya, it's a pleasure to meet you," said the stoic beauty as she pulled a chair slightly to help him seat and went to help his mother. "Come Percy-kun, have breakfast with us, then your mother will have a chat with you, then we'll answer your questions," said Naruto in a happy tone. "Wow. Eat now, troublesome stuff later," cut in Shikamaru, taking his plate without looking away from the papers he was examining. Percy clamped his mouth and began to eat, he was hungry. Breakfast was a pleasant, he and his mother chatted a little for a while, it was relaxing for him. Without that silent, and sometimes not so much, pressure with Gabe hovering around or making degrading sexist comments. As breakfast dragged on he began dreading what was to come, of course he wanted to know what was going on, yet he felt equally curious and afraid for some reason. When his mother finished her food she sighed heavily and looked at the blonde, Naruto, in a somewhat pleading way. He caught on and smiled ruefully but nodded. "Okay, may I call you Percy, Percy-kun?" "Yeah, no prob." "Okay Percy, look, there's no easy or tactful way, at least not one where you don't blow us off as crazy. So I'm gonna be blunt with you, and you must remember that everything we're going to tell you is the truth, and that if things were different or possible your mother had let you in the dark so you were safe. Alas, it is not possible. First thing is that magic and the supernatural are real, look here," he said, and just as Percy was predictably going to blow him off, he raised his hand in front of him and a blue orb of light swirled into existence with a soft humming sound. Well, to Percy it seemed at first to be some sort of light trick and tried to reach to it, he was grabbed by the wrist. "Look carefully," said Naruto and grabbed a fork, holding above the orb, and slowly he lowered it. When it touched the orb the fork was torn and grinded apart, leaving behind fine metallic powder. To his surprise. Again, the fine powder was sucked into the swirling orb and noticed that it was like a little maelstrom with various levels of depth. The swirls kept changing directions at odd intervals, mesmerizing him with its sky blue hues. "What the?" Step back and then the orb abruptly changed to an angry spectral red. It roared with fury, and a ring of flames erupted from it, and the swirl sped up and became something akin to a firestorm. The ring seemed to stabilize and became a flickering flame wheel saw disc. The room immediately got warmer and he and his mother started to sweat. Though those four seemed to be unaffected. One more time and the roaring orb of doom changed again, but this time, the sound of draining water was heard and slowly it became louder as it turned to something like a waterfall crashing down. Its color changed to blue, but this time a more cyan hue that reminded him of the sea. The orb shrunk to the size of golf ball, but a layer of water formed around it blurring slightly, in the space in between mist floated spiraling softly toward the center. It reminded Percy of the clear water walls that formed when it fell nice and neatly. If he was honest with himself, this one particularly drew on to him for some reason he wanted to hold it. Very badly. Naruto arched an eyebrow as he noticed the longing in Percy as he was looking very intently at this variant of the Rasengan. Taking note of this and filing it away he dispelled the technique. Percy took a few moments to get out of his trance. Suddenly he was grabbed in the arms by shadows. He was startled by this but didn't had time to protest as he was lifted from the floor and he yelped. The shadows came from the other guy. Shikamaru and held him high enough to touch the ceiling. As we said, the supernatural is real Percy-san and there are many things hiding in plain view. You are now aware. But know this, from the moment you were born you were part of this, said Shikamaru as he slowly lowered him near his mother. Honey, let's sit on the couch, we have much to talk about. Percy, still in half shock, half awed state, just nodded dumbly and followed his mom. The four on the table just remained there. That was a little extreme, don't you think? Naruto deadpanned Hinata. Well, if I went and tried to convince him with words, he most likely would simply blow us off or do something stupid. Like you're one to talk, but I agree this was the most straightforward manner to convince him, supplied Shikamaru as he took a sip of his cup, emptying it. More coffee? Asked Kagaya. Yes please, he replied absent-mindedly. You really took a taste for it, didn't you, Shika? Can't say otherwise, I'm half of a mind to try and bring back a few seed back home. Naruto just chuckled, but he was also interested if he could bring a few things home. By the way, Shika, why do you think Ananki-sama hasn't claimed us yet at the camp? Shikamaru took some time to ponder this. Don't know, but maybe she's waiting the right time or maybe she simply won't. From what I recall, in most cases the 12 claim a child when he or she does something of worth. But then in claiming us she would gather the attention of all the current deities. A primordial claiming 3 sons is bound to draw some notice. On another note, now that we are standing solidly financially and have begun works with the demigods. It's time to start looking on how to set up an informant network because the clones can only do so much even if they hinge themselves. Yes, we already made step 1 on that area, but we need more. I've been thinking maybe we could ask Sally-san if she knows more parents with demigods. Parents not happy, proposed Naruto. You mean to say parents that are not roped in that glory propaganda, clarified Shikamaru. Hi. It's worth a shot and I'll let us get a feel of how the other parties are aligned. I refuse to think that with all those one-sided decrees there isn't some form of dissidence of any type, replied Shikamaru as Hinata's face darkened and Kagaya remained impassive but quietly watching the proceedings. It's just too much like the clans, muttered Hinata, and Naruto grabbed her hand and smiled at him. Kagaya served her another cup of tea and Hinata thanked her, really appreciating the gesture. Naruto-sama, if I can, did you perhaps notice the trance that Percy-san experienced when you used your water-based technique? Hi, I did actually. He is actually pretty powerful for his age if you compare him to the other campers. Sally-san indirectly confirmed that he is a son of one of the 12. I recall that every demigod inherits some sort of trait related to their godly parent. If we are straightforward, then his fascination for your Suiton. Susei-san Bakuten would most likely be. Barnacle beards, fault cut in Naruto, and Shikamaru nodded. Maybe, but let's wait to see if Sally-san will tell Percy-kun and if they're willing to tell us, added Hinata in an afterthought. Sally-san spoke positively of Percy-san's father, added Kagaya. She actually implied he was very tempted to go against the godly decree, said Shikamaru. Yeah, let's wait, I don't want them to get the wrong idea about us, said Naruto. Agreed. Hi, said both Shikamaru and Kagaya. What do you make out of this, guys? Asked Naruto to the Biju. Well, I'm fairly certain that the whelp, it's the sea god's son, I can feel the call of the sea on him, answered Isobu. Damn, can't help it, you felt that, let's just hope they open up to us, thought Naruto. Leaving that aside, it seems that you already have located 2 of the 3 childs of that dumb prophecy, added Kurama. You should offer them some training. I don't believe it would be wise to wait for the kid to arrive to the camp, supplied Son Goku. Also, you could start the spy network and help Sally-san in one go, though it may seem callous. By helping her you could get her on board, supplied Kakyo. That much I know, I really don't want to use her like that. Don't worry too much about that, kid, we all know that you aren't doing it with that purpose in mind, and your friend and mate surely understand this, but you are on a mission, so you must capitalize on your resources, cut in Kurama, stopping Naruto's train of thought. Thanks guys, Naruto replied back. Still think we should just go Jubi cloak and blast the 12 asses, and new one grumbled Shukaku, and the other just eyed him with a little amusement that he had already named that weird accident. Believe me Shukaku, I really want to do just that, I just might do so. But first we need to have more info on those forbidden ones, till then we'll play the waiting game, thought back Naruto in a near growl. Well, seems that Percy really is the son of Barnacle Beard, relied Naruto. Did the guys told you, Naruto? Asked Hinata. Yeah, Asobu is fairly certain, he said he feels the call from the sea in him. Did they said anything else? Asked Shikamaru. Yeah, that we should start a basic training for him, oh. And Shukaku wants to fuck it all and reenact the 4th war on the 12th. Jubi and all, he said with a smirk. They all chuckled at that, even Kagaya. Wouldn't that be a sight to behold, but I doubt they have someone like Naruto-sama on their side, said Kagaya in a rare show of sarcasm, but somewhat proudly. Yeah, idiots like him are hard to come by, added Shikamaru with a smirk. Ooh. This is too much, Mom, said Percy absent-mindedly. His mind was just numb and blown away. Again. His father was a god, a powerful one. But he couldn't be with him because Sparky was a jealous and paranoid idiot. Most of all myths were real, oh, and there are monsters out there that seem to think his flesh it's a gourmet delicacy. Though it sure explained those little weird incidents now and then. Believe me honey, I know, and I wish that you wouldn't have to deal with all this, but Naruto-san and his friends made me realize that if I kept this from you for more time, not only would I end up hurting you, but most likely it would blow up in our face at the worst possible time, she said with sorrow and at the verge of tears. Percy saw this and frowned and hugged her, and she sobbed as her emotions got the best of her. She half expected her son to shout and deny all this crazy stuff and demand the truth. Percy on his part was almost about to do that, but the combined facts of Naruto's display earlier and more importantly seeing his mother almost crying, made him cool down. It's okay Mom, I'm really glad that you told me, but mostly that we can finally be away from smelly Gabe, he said, trying to cheer her up. She chuckled and smiled at the jab. I know honey, I know. Now what Mom? Now well, to be frank, I'm not even sure, sighed Naruto-san, could you come? Alright. So Naruto-san, what now? Asked Sally a little fearful. Well, that's still up to you, Sally-san. We couldn't leave you alone for good measure. Being honest, there's something you could do for us that would benefit both of us. Please, I can't possibly continue to abuse your hospitality. Please calm down, Sally-san, as I briefly explained over the days. We are part of a clan of hunters. Yokai hunters are simply monsters hunters, and yes, we are demigods. A few months back our clan got attacked and dispersed to the winds. Currently we're trying to find survivors. As such, we have set up a few safe houses such as this one, but we can't always be here to take care of it. Incidentally, we took the liberty to hook you up as manager of a new restaurant downtown, added Shikamaru. God, that's too much. Said Sally, mortified they were doing so much for her. Percy started to get suspicious, thought he also felt guilty for thinking like that of them. Naruto smiled because Percy wasn't all that good at hiding his expressions. Please Ali-san, calm down, interjected Hinata. Yes, please listen. We didn't save you to make us anything, we did it because we wanted to. Now that we are where we are, it's a matter of looking for the best outcome. We did some research and know that you have a major on Busen's administration, so we know you are the right person for the job. Also, we were serious about the traveling and really need someone in the in and out of why we don't stay permanently here. With your job you can pay us back by taking care of basic expenditures for you and Percy-kun and keep maintain the condo, said Shikamaru calmly. It would also help us out if keep a lookout for more of our kinsmen and or demigods out there. We already have been looking for quite a few months and have only had a brief encounters with some senpai since then, added Hinata in faux dejection. Of course. Oh my god, I can't imagine being a part of my family for so long, exclaimed Sally in a gasp of horror. It's okay, don't worry, Sally-san. Another thing, though this one is more for you, Percy. No offense, Sally-san, that picked up Percy's interest that up until now had remained silent. Huh? Really, Percy, really, way to go. Naruto chuckled but seemed to not pay it any mind. His face got serious and looked at him straight in the eyes. Frankly, it unnerved Percy a bit. Percy, these monsters have the ability to smell the godly blood, and it turns out that being aware of it increases how strong the smell is. While we can manage it for a few more years with our seals, it will inevitably become too strong. Our offer is that we can train you in basic survival and fighting skills, said Naruto in a serious tone. He wasn't really sure, well, he really wanted to accept, he was somewhat put off that he had asked him directly. His mother was about to seemingly protest when Hinata spoke up. Even if he denied the offer, we would ensure that Percy-kun reached safely the camp, Sally-san. However, if we are to train him, he needs to this willingly and out of his free will for this to truly work out. So we're sorry, Sally-san, but in this matter the decision must be made entirely by Percy-kun. Sally glared at them, but they stared unflinchingly right back. "Please train me," said Percy at Naruto that hadn't looked away from him. Okay, Percy saw the inner conflict on his mother's expressions and her arguments and complaints became muted, a distant noise severely muffled. He resolved himself, his mother had spent already too much time watching out for him, and though some small voice said that it was natural as that's supposedly what mothers do. Another much stronger said that it was too much. The sole fact that in the brief days they had been here had made wonders in his mother's health and demeanor was proof enough. "I don't want to be a burden, I want to help you mom to be able to do something that did it," and Sally sighed in defeat and just hugged her son. "Alright Percy, we'll start tomorrow though it will only be physical conditioning for the first few weeks," said Naruto as he got up and ruffled Percy's hair a bit. Normally he would complain and swat off the offending limb, but with Naruto he felt oddly okay with it. "Boy Shika, think we can do test runs with prototype fitness programs," said Naruto as he went back to kitchen but gave Percy his well-known prankster grin. Shikamaru eyed knowingly at Percy and snorted. "Hi, I believe we can do so then," and there Percy had a shiver run up his spine. Crap. Percy. The next few weeks became an activity blur for Percy. Between his daily exercises, which more than exercises were run and dodge sessions of never-ending pranks, Naruto rigged some warehouse they went after school hours. His mother coming and going as she was set up for that job they had offered her and were in the process to transfer him from the Yangtze, can't rightly remember the name, sorry, academy, but since the year was just starting, they had to wait a bit. According to the four hunters there was just too many monsters prowling around. It was way too suspicious, they had something about a screening spot or something like that. He guessed that they knew their stuff, even if he didn't understand much for now. That was another thing which had been constantly taking up his time. Besides his physical training they had been teaching him a whole lot more. Stuff like survival, gathering herbs and recollection, strategy, some infiltration and saboteur basics. Honestly Percy was dead tired every single day, but he wouldn't trade it for the world. Not that he would say it out loud. The cheery blonde was scary when he wanted to with those trap courses from hell that he set up. The less motivated he felt to make those things the better. Other than that Naruto was actually a really cool guy to be around. Hinata was really sweet and gentle woman. From time to time when they were around she would cook for them so as to let mom have a rest. He had to say that she was one of the best cooks ever, she made mostly oriental dishes, but both he and his mom enjoyed them thoroughly whenever they could. Shikamaru was an odd one, he mostly napped around and saying things were troublesome. Yet he always was checking on Percy's progress and offered advice from time to time. He also was the one to teach about strategy and had taken to teach him how to play chess, go and shogi. Goddamn were those a headache. He had to admit though that just like Shikamaru predicted once he got the hang of it, he was able to channel his excess energy onto the task if he pictured the board as a sort of battlefield. Last but not least the one that he was the most curious about was Kagaya. His mom teased him to no end about if he had finally developed a crush. Though embarrassingly enough he couldn't truly deny nor agree with her. He really was taken aback with her, but he couldn't say if he truly had a crush for Kagaya. What he did know was that there was something that drew his attention to her. Again, he couldn't quite put his finger on what. Maybe the way she moved with royal grace confident of her actions, her silky midnight black hair and beautiful white skin that didn't have that sickly tint, maybe her enigmatic eyes. All in all she had this sort of ethereal beauty that contrasted the self-assured aura of strength that she seemed to radiate. Truly his life had turned around in a completely unexpected direction. However he could openly say that it was a good one. Just in this short time the four hunters had become something close to new family members to Percy. Just the other day he had accidentally lapsed with Naruto and called him Nai-chan in Japanese. He had laughed it off and called him Bakataudo without seeming to mind it. Hinata was becoming something close to an elder sister that doted on him from time to time but didn't spoil him. Shikamaru was sort of an uncle that offered his counsel when needed, watching from the sidelines, but never refused or behaved cold to him. "Ah damn it," shouted one Annabeth Chase as another of her team member was felled by a pitfall that was settled up just after the rope swing they had to take to cross the river that apparently had been made to look like a shallow creek with the mist. On that note they had barely made it to 3/4 of the total length of the trap course. She nearly collapsed and went to her knees. Besides her were a few more campers and by this point they all had practically forgotten all about the cabin rivalries. She cast a sideway look to Luke as he also rested a bit trying to regain his breath. Claris and Aries' new arrival stood a few paces of her also breathing rather heavily. This hell course had stripped them all of any thought of culling the numbers, it was doing that pretty well on its own. She mildly wondered if her pride had gotten the best of her, again, when she signed up for the new advanced course preliminaries. The Aries cabin members thought they would have the advantage. Though some of the less prideful had taken some extra courses, they had quickly proven wrong. This underworld damn trap course was beyond anything they expected. It had prank traps with paint, itchy powder, and such that led them to really hurtful traps. Sometimes the traps were laid quite plainly only to actually scare them from the safe routes, and in other cases like just now there were chain traps that were put one after another that didn't let them a moment of respite. Fuck, this is crazy. What in Dan Mortalis are thinking this people, shouted Clarice, not even the seniors deigned to answer her. Not that she expected it. I very much doubt they truly are human, said some senior from the Apollo cabin as he started to walk. Suddenly Annabeth paled as she heard a sound she had learned to dread in the last 3 hours or so. Thunk. Kriak. Take cover. Shouted Annabeth as she dived to the ground as another contraption flung gloves with that hateful powder paint that impacted some of the seniors and the last of the newbies besides Clarice and her. The seniors, still covered in paint, still went to the floor, trying to keep damage at minimum. The newbie spluttered as he was hit on the face, then several darts were fired from the trees and he got one on the ass of all places. The poor kid was down for the count in less than 10 seconds and fell unconscious on his face. Fuck this shit. Shouted Clarice again, she had to agree. Mentally. On a side note, we haven't encountered one single hellhound, offered George, or Fred. She wasn't quite sure of who was this one. Luke just looked like he wanted to shove his face with some of that paint. Not that he dared try and reach one. What if Naruto hates his godly parent Percy Jackson? End here, and thanks for watching my video till the end.